Hey everybody,
Dilly
welcome
dally,
to
shilly
Dialog Choices Podcast. We were discussing the etymology of dilly dally shilly shally.
And Keith was saying it's an I with an A for an E with an E-A.
Wait,
And
no, I said dilly has an I and dally has an A.
That's the one.
They're spelled the same way
Because I
otherwise.
thought it was like...
because I was like, it's spelled the way it's spelled the way it sounds. You could do it, and then you spelled it D-E-A-L-L-Y. And you made up a letter halfway through, and I was like, okay, this is harder than I thought it was. Apparently,
it's difficult. What's the word? What's that thing where you spell out each letter for the word? There's a term for it. Spelling? Is it just called
phonetic?
Spelling? Yeah, when you're saying D-I-L-L-Y.
It's alive.
You're just spelling out. That's difficult for me.
Know what I'm talking about.
You having trouble there, bud?
You know,
that's difficult for me
it
because
sounds like Jello.
Like the cats?
Jello. It's alive.
Oh, I see.
We're cursed.
No,
we're Americans, so we're forever cursed by advertising. Antico water slides. Everyone's got their local regional ads they heard 100 times as a kid.
Yeah.
Manteca water slides.
Best fun fact of all, that fucking place is closed down, so it's just living there forever in my fucking head, rent free.
Yeah.
Great, good job.
And it doesn't even have a context anymore.
Doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
I'm gonna die like an old person in my bed, like Manteco. It's like, Grandpa, what the fuck is that?
What is water? We don't even.
What is water? We don't have water in Portugal.
You guys just slid on water slides? Why? No. That's a waste of precious resources,
exactly.
Grandpa. It's like, slip it away, leave the parents behind.
we were talking about the infamous dilly dally shilly shally line from the English dub, at least, of Advent Children, Final Fantasy VII, where Cloud angst, it does unmemorable angsting. He does an angst. Probably it's looking at his gray bandages or whatever. I don't know. That was my favorite movie at some point, which is weird because I never played Final Fantasy VII. It was just a really hype-ass video game cutscene of the movie, and that was enough for me when I was like 13 or whatever.
That's great.
I remember like at one point I had a digital copy of that movie, and that was when I realized the fucking climactic final battle that happens in the city starts halfway through the movie. Of a 90-minute movie, 45 minutes of it is the city battle at the end. That's how fucking long it is. Because admittedly, it's like you got the B plot with like Rude and Reno, and Reno is my favorite character. And then there's like they're all fighting like Bahamut or something. And then there's the Sephiroth battle after that. And there's all different stages. So like a bunch of scenes separately keep happening. And there's also like Shinra stuff happening. And he does the Matrix dive out of a building. And actually I can walk and whatever the fuck is happening in the movie. But that entire sequence, like there's so many sequences before that part, like the church sequence and the glowing tree forest sequence and stuff, that it feels like it must be less of the movie. But it's half of the movie. But no, but fucking Cloud is angsting, and Tifa's just like dilly dally shilly shally, and just like in such a dismissive way, like your concerns don't matter to me, Cloud. Shut the fuck up. But it's just
he does. I mean, he does need to save the world. He doesn't have time to sit around and be sad all day.
But now that fucking phrasing, I've had videos called dilly dally shilly shally, and it's just like that fucking phrase is burned into my brain forever.
And it's just one phrase in one movie.
Yeah. It doesn't even have larger context, because as far as I can tell...
How do you know how to write it even, then?
Because dilly-dally is real. And the other part's just an SH. Because that is the thing, is like... He's like, so you stop dilly-dallying and shit like that. Dilly-dally is a thing. I don't know what the fuck its origin is. If we could just start Googling shit, I guess. I gotta type dilly-dally, then press delete to not have it autocomplete to shilly-shally.
Waste time through aimless wandering or indecision.
It's also a rock band from 2009, Toronto. No, I know what it means. I just don't know what it's from. Where's the phrase come from? Old French from the 19th century.
Old French? That's not old enough.
The racy past of lollygag. Whoa! How is this the search result?
What do you mean the racy past of
lollygagging, screwing around, goofing off, whatever you call it? We can all agree there are a lot of ways to talk about wasting time.
Well,
Lollygag is historically known as lallygag. It comes to English in the mid-19th century. It means to dawdle. However, at the time, lollygag also meant to fool around. I mean, lollygag is a very, very horny-sounding term.
it does sound, yes.
I don't know how to imagine, really.
It's got gag in it, I mean.
But I got here from Dilly Dally, which is confusing.
Well, that's what you get when you go Googling. That's not what real linguists do. They go and
yeah, but I'm not a linguist. I don't give a fuck.
I'm kidding.
Wow.
But we've also got Dilly Dally, where the base word dally comes from Old French hundreds of years ago and meant to chat idly. So she's like, shut up with your dumbass idle chatter. Cloud, you're supposed to be a silent protagonist. Shut the fuck up. You're not supposed to start voicing concerns. I think he's completely mute in the game.
No. Really?
Yeah, and he suddenly is a voice protagonist in.
You mean to tell me
movie.
I mean, I never played Final Fantasy
Which is technically where all of his characterization comes from, because before then he was that like vaguely childlike silent protagonist of every JRPG, where they like kind of like can only emote at things, so they can't be that broody. I
can't believe it. You're breaking my world right now.
Yeah, he's a silent protagonist in the original game. He just looks at people.
I know JRPGs have a lot of silent protagonists for many reasons, and many JRPGs have that, but I didn't know Final Fantasy specifically had it, because all my life I've heard people be like, oh, Western RPGs just don't have well enough developed protagonists. They're not charismatic. And JRPGs just have so charismatic protagonists. You know, you're really invested in that thing. And I'm like,
when was the first non-silent protagonist of a Final Fantasy game? It was probably 9 or 10, right? Was Monkey Guy talky? Did you play Monkey Guy, Andrew? I never played 9.
9 apparently is the best one.
They look so playful with the monkey tail and the long hair and everything and the androgyny.
So I've never actually. Well, I've only played Final Fantasy VIII. I've watched CeeLo beat every other Final Fantasy.
Oh.
Final Fantasy 9 quotes.
Final Fantasy IX, I don't remember a lot of it, mostly because it was kind of just a cartoonish, silly Wonderland.
Zidane Tribal. Oh yeah, there's a long list of Zidane Tribal quotes, so they clearly talk. So Zidane talks. That's apparently their name, is Zidane.
Okay, maybe.
And Titus infamously spoke and laughed.
Yes, he had a lot to say, and none of it was good.
I really like Titus.
Do you really? I
like Final Fantasy X.
I would fucking dunk that kid in a trash can as fast as possible. I fucking hate Titus.
I wanted his pants as a kid. I wanted to have the one leg. I would go around with like the zipper pants, and I'd zip one to doing a short and the other one to being long, and I'd go around like Titus as a kid.
Holy shit, that's great.
Because it was like 10 when that game came out, and it was my first. Either that or Golden Sun was like my first JRPG. And I feel like we've only gotten worse since.
I think my favorite Final Fantasy character is Riku.
Well, if you're gonna,
Riku?
they're gonna.
I thought she was voiced by Britney Spears for some reason. I was confused.
Jeez, no.
For a long time, I was convinced that was completely true, and I don't know why. It's Tara. Okay, it's Tara Strong.
Yeah, it's Tara Strong. I don't know why you would think
that. The actress that is everyone.
But yeah, she is prolific. Like maybe that's because
actress
you've heard
that's
her
not
everywhere.
Jennifer Hale.
Yeah, well,
the other.
Look, America doesn't have a lot of voice actors.
We have to.
Didn't she play Jimmy Neutron? I mean, Timmy Turner. There we go.
There you go.
Speaking, there's been some controversies related to that going on Twitter lately.
Well, it's more the creator.
Yeah, no, the creator keeps doing commissions apparently.
No, he doesn't do commissions. He keeps doing
he does
art theft.
He does art commissions where he just steals from somebody else's art. Like he doesn't literally steal their art directly, but he basically practically just draws over it. And the most confusing, like people draw with references and whatnot, like they look up photos of people and try to draw the pose and stuff like that because it's hard to draw people like it always. It's like figure of drawing and all that. But taking somebody else's drawing that's already a piece of art and then trying to using that as your reference and pretty much just recreating it is already like really iffy. But what's really baffling to me is just that he's known for a really specific art style, and Danny Phantom and I keep wanting to say Jimmy Neutron, Fairly Odd Parents. And he doesn't do it.
He's copying somebody else.
It just looks like a random deviant art picture that he. It's like the commission is the whole point is you're getting it from the guy that supposedly made Danny Phantom and Fairly Odd Parents, and the fucking drawings he makes just don't look like that style at all. So it's like, what was the point? It's so fucking odd.
That is weird.
We're on a lot of tangents, but that got around because like that was straight up. That when your art theft is noticeable enough to be fucking trending on Twitter, it's coming to me when I'm not even fucking following that stuff because I barely know who he was, and I'm like I don't follow the artists of my children's shows.
You say we're on a lot of tangents. We literally started with a throwaway line that you said off camera, and then you said
we just
I'm gonna
followed
look
up on
it.
it.
Yes,
but that's because. Well, I only started then because I was like, I'm about to go on another tangent, and I had to start recording first. Otherwise, we just never would start.
That's a fair point. This is what
specifically,
happened.
I started quoting the scene, and all in my head, and I'm like, dilly dally, shilly shally, dilly dally. Dilly dally shilly shally. They just start saying it at each other back and forth because it's that thing where like you catch somebody off guard and the person quotes it back at you and then you say it again, and all I can think about is fucking Warriors of Virtue, my childhood fever dream that nobody else knows exists but I'll always remember, with its live action elemental Captain Planet kangaroo men and the mispronunciation of the word key or whatever the whole movie, and weird bastardization of Eastern mythology, but just the fucking Looney Tunes villain that is Komodo is like, we need to all sit down together someday and watch this movie and do a commentary on it and just experience it because it's so fucking baffling. This guy's like the Duke Nukem of children's shows, where he just keeps throwing around lines from other things that the kids won't know they're from, like warriors come out and play and stuff like that. And what the fuck? And he's just so fucking nuts the whole film that it's the whole reason to watch the film.
I looked up an image, and the one that brought my eye the most is titled "Warriors of Virtue was a terrifying kangaroo-filled nightmare." Yeah,
all the kangaroos are super uncanny because they're real. It's like the equivalent of not Sonic 06, but the Sonic movie, like first model, where it's like we got to show the actor's face kind of still, so they're like they try to make it so they can kind of act, so they have like mostly just a human skull. Like they just, like you can see the shape of their skull.
Oh, I see.
And then they have like a muzzle and nose coming out of their face, and then ears coming out of their heads. So they're like uncanny
they all
cat
look
girls. Like it's like when it's like somebody drew a cat girl, but in the style of those like hyper realistic Homer Simpson drawings, where they try to make a horrifying cartoon thing look too real.
Basically, all the kangaroos look like Ron Perlman.
Oh yeah, they all look like Ron. I think one of them might be Ron Perlman.
Oh no.
I think one of them might be Ron Perlman. Wait, Warriors of Virtue 2, The Return to Tao? Oh, that's what it was. It was Tao was supposed to be how it was really pronounced, I think, or something. What the fuck? Mm-hmm. There's a sequel? One of them might be... I'd be surprised if none of them are Ron Perlman, because they all look like Ron Perlman.
They do. They so do. Let me see.
And it also backfired like crazy, because all that...
Ron
they still
Perlman
have enough stuff on their
movie.
face that none of them can emote besides having the animatronic ears point in ways that would emote. Like their faces cannot move. It's so fucked.
Ron Perlman is not in the movie.
But he is in spirit. But that movie has a scene where they're all fucking kidnapping this kid, because this one kid's from like the world. He came into this world with the book, because it's a fucking not Zaibatsu. What's it called? What's the world anime thing we keep talking about? A wrong world anime.
Wrong world.
Tenkaichi.
Like
Zaibatsu. What's the word?
Are you talking about like
Isekai? Isekai. It's an isekai movie where the protagonist is like not supposed to be there because they're from the real world. Because he fell into a whirlpool and somehow ended up in the Warriors of Virtue land, and it made no sense. He fell in a sewer and presumably died. So like I don't know what the fuck. But he had this chosen one book, and nobody can read it except supposedly him. Everyone thinks that he'll be able to read it. So the Komodo's trying to kidnap him the whole fucking movie and get him in the room with the book and make him read it. And he's finally gonna fucking make him read it. He's like, what does it say? And he's like, shit happens. shit.
Wow.
And then like Kono's like, shit happens, and like weird lady, other girl, it's like, shit happens, shit happens, shit happens. Like they're all saying it in a circle, back and forth, like dilly dally, shilly shally, for like 30 seconds, and the whole time you're like, can they say shit in a kids movie? I don't even know. And like,
You're more
it's
weird
actually,
about bureaucracy.
it's kind of a good scene because it's fucking with them, obviously, because he can't read it, and that's the takeaway, I guess. But it was just like, what a fucking weird, surreal scene of everyone, like the protagonist and the antagonist of the movie, just saying shit happens back and forth with like a mystical look, like they're trying to read into what it means. Just
Wow.
what a beautiful movie. I have it on VHS. It's my only VHS. I have the Star Wars trilogy, or like the original Star Wars trilogy, I think, maybe unspecialized, and just Warriors of Virtue. That's my VHS collection from thrift stores.
Wow.
I found it for $1, and I'm like, I mean, I have to. It's got that irritating children's packaging where it's like padded. Remember how
Padded
kids
VHS
VHSs had like a white rim to them that was plastic, so they wouldn't get broken by kids, I assume. Because normal VHSs came in a cardboard sleeve that was just form fitting, but children's VHSs were these big bulky things with like a white plastic rim, which I assume was to make them not get broken by children or something.
Yeah, at least a little bit more
Like
resilient.
toy packaging.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just want to remind everyone that Warriors of Virtue exists.
This is a reality that I was not aware of, and I mean, I imagine there's a lot of stuff like this. Basically, movies that probably should have been animated rather than real life.
But I'm glad it wasn't. My favorite part is the 5 frames per second climactic battle scene.
Wow,
Like, it's
that was a
stylish.
style for a while, wasn't it?
There's
They
like
did
it's
that on purpose
stylized if
sometimes.
it's low frame rate, I guess.
Yeah,
Just looks blurry.
yeah. It's just it covers up all the bad choreography. It's
There's like weird lines that might like sneak into videos where I'm like, look at me, or something that I don't
From
even know
the
if
movie.
I don't know if it's ever come out, but there's just origin stories for weird, dumb things that come out of me sometimes.
the weird references that every once in a while.
Fucking nightmare.
Yeah, this sounds like a fever dream because I have no concept.
I
of
also
this at
want to
all.
be Komodo for Halloween.
I mean, you're the only one holding yourself back from that.
Yeah. Oh my god, if I ever get to a fucking convention, the fucking Komodo cosplay.
You'll be like the only one. They'll be like literally.
Someone will
people
know.
be like-
Someone always knows. That's like the fucking joke about conventions, is that every obscure possible character, somebody's playing them, including like whatever memes happened in the last 3 years, even if they're not people. like the meme can be like a sign and be like, it's me. It's me. I'm the but her emails sign that's in the flood. I'm cosplaying as that. Like, you don't fucking know. People are crazy.
If I ever cosplayed a meme, it would have to be the little girl running away from the dog. No, wait, that's not the dog. Which one is the what does she run away from?
Oh my god.
For
Do you know the
what?
one? The
The
little girl with
kid
the
that's like
bubbles?
looking. It's like this chubby little girl that's looking back over her shoulder by just sprinting away.
Yeah,
I think it's
yeah,
always
I think-
photoshopped out of context. Even it's her like original situations.
So,
there
like,
is
it
no
could be
there is no
literally
but her
anything.
emails cosplay.
But her emails. I actually don't know that meme. Let me look it up.
I don't know what butthurt means.
No, but
I
her
do.
emails.
The emails.
Oh.
I see other things that are not memes, but that's.
Here, I'll just put it in the chat. There you go.
Oh,
That's pretty. Oh god, there's iterations on this. Oh no! Oh no! Oh god! I just found
how
one
would
that's
you
a picture.
cosplay that?
I just found one that is it's Handmaid's Tale, and they're all like doing their forced like shopping for oranges in their dystopian nightmare where everyone has to wear hoods like they're horses, and the subtitles but her emails, and it's like, oh god, this went through iterations over the years that I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't. I guess things iterate online. We're in directions.
Yeah, this is we're going in a lot of directions today.
Does anybody have a topic for today?
Good question.
It's good to ask that after you start, right?
Well, people
Yeah.
watching know the title of the episode, so they know.
They know more than we do about what this video's about.
Oh no,
Dude, some of these videos have been desperate. Where I'm like, I finish and I'm like, God, that was like an almost 3-hour fever dream. And it's not necessarily that it was a bad podcast, but I can't remember what. There wasn't like a theme I can remember for the whole thing. So like I'll be like, I'll like skip around and I'll find a conversation I remember. I'm like, okay, the whole video is named and thumbnailed based on that conversation that I found at like minute 42
So-
of the 3-hour video.
this is probably only relevant to me, and I apologize, but I do have something that's been on my mind.
Why are you? I'm worried now that you're apologizing for it.
So, because it's like it's probably the most pedantic, dumb thing. But I went to go see a movie yesterday,
Oh,
and
because you
one
went
of the
to a
trailers-
drive-through.
Yeah, it was my
Drive
first time
up?
going to a drive-in movie.
Drive-in, yeah.
Drive-in movie. It was my first time going.
Can you imagine a drive-through theater where you have to wait 90 minutes at the window to watch a movie, and then the
shit.
next guy gets in?
That sounds like something you would see in one of those like futuristic 50s things. Like in the future, people can just drive up and watch a movie, and it's like,
Yeah,
why?
one
That
at a
sounds awful.
time.
What the fuck?
As Stephanie would say, that is Kafka-esque.
Yeah, that's not great. But so there's one. So what impresses me about drive-in movie theaters is that they somehow still have the same issue of please turn your fucking phone off, except it's please turn your fucking headlights off, where people just keep their fucking headlights on, which is great, solid for a movie where the entire premise is you have to watch a light being projected from a distance onto a screen with no other light getting in the way of that light. Like people just don't understand the basics of fucking actual, like just general science. They're like, oh, it's weird. The movie just looks kind of blown out. It's like, yeah, because you're a fucking asshole. Turn your lights off.
My God.
So I was watching this movie. There's trailers in the beginning. One of the trailers was for this gritty looking detective cop thing, and I was like, oh, okay, that's weird. And so the first person that
I don't take a shower.
kinda, and so the cop was like, the cop sounded really weird. I was like, I think that's Chris Rock, and it was Chris Rock playing a serious role as a detective, and I thought that was gonna be interesting to pull off because he still sounds like the zebra from Madagascar. And he just won't ever stop sounding like the zebra from Madagascar. So I don't know if that's a possibility to be serious after that, but I'll give it to him.
I
But
mean,
the point is,
that's just what he sounded like before that too.
but that's the
Yeah,
problem.
it's-
He doesn't sound like a serious person. He like if he was mad at me, I wouldn't know he was mad at me because he just sounds funny all the time. He always sounds like he's
Yeah.
going to tell you a joke, which is like it's great if you cast him for any comedy role. Like he was great in the movie with I forget the name of the movie now.
He's in like all those.
Chan.
He's in like all those Adam Sandler movies.
Is he?
Yeah, like he's in Grown Ups. He's one of the main. He's like one of the 4 dudes in Grown Ups, or 5, or whatever. He's in the cast of the people that are the Grown Ups.
Okay, but
He's one of the Grown Ups, don't you know?
One of
The
he's a
Mighty
grown-up,
Morphin
all right.
Power Grown Ups.
So he's okay. So what was I getting at? So first off, I was surprised that Chris Rock was in a serious movie. Secondly, the movie started feeling a little little familiar. I was like, huh. I was like, this is kind of weird. It seems almost like a movie. It seems like a horror movie I've seen before. And then it goes to the point where it's like he's holding a saw and he's handcuffed to a radiator. And I went, that's really memorable. Isn't that like a Saw movie? And then it shows the title and it's called Spiral from the Book of Saw. And I was like,
Wait,
is there a fucking religion about this now? What
It's
the
a
fuck?
Spiral from the
it's a
Book of
spin-off?
Saw.
So it's apparently, I think this is their way of not making like a Saw 27, is that they're going to call their new movies something from the Book of Saw.
They also
And,
already
like-
did that before when they called the last movie Jigsaw.
Yeah,
After
but
instead
I
of
think that
Saw
didn't work.
8, what it would have been.
I don't think that worked out as well as they hoped. So I think this is like
Oh,
their new
Spiral's
approach.
also going to have Angry Man in it.
It also has Samuel L. Jackson in it too. Yes, which he does sound like he's angry all the time. So that works out. He can fit in a serious role. He's always mad.
Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson in a Saw
But yeah,
movie.
Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson is such a juxtaposition when you're listening to them in the trailer, where it's like, you know, he's like his tone of voice is very funny, man. And then you have Samuel L. Jackson like, get the fuck out of there. And it's like, what,
and
what is happening?
and his partner is the guy from Handmaid's Tale. Bam, brought it all back. I just knew the future of this conversation. I knew where we're going.
So, anyways, I want to point out that if this is a thing,
he's the cuck in that movie, in that show. Not the cuck.
If this is going to be if this is going to be a thing where instead of putting numbers after your movies, you're gonna make like a stupid catch line. I'm gonna politely ask you to fucking not. That's really dumb. I don't like it.
Because you watched Saw by mistake and he didn't want to.
No, because From the Book of Saw sounds fucking stupid. Because there is no Book of Saw. That's not a thing. There is no actual fucking Book of Saw.
The first movie Saw is so like the title itself is part of the movie because it draws your attention to the item of the saw, and you watch the whole movie. You know the saw is there. It's like a movie about the saw, but it really isn't at the end of the day. And it's like I think the title is integral to the first movie, and then they just forgot about it somehow. There's no saw in any of the other movies.
But that's the weird thing. Is like this is
the entire franchise is called Saw because somebody cut their arm off or leg off once.
Yeah,
at the beginning.
They didn't even spoiler. They didn't even the first movie doesn't end with that.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
no, it doesn't.
You didn't watch the movie, apparently. Yeah.
How do you think he fucking got out? No, he literally cut his.
He crushed his foot to not cut it off.
Oh, did he do that?
You don't. Oh, no. Yeah. So spoilers, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. I just remember. But more so than the movie is because obviously that's the thread of the first movie, and then I remember him coming up in a later movie and he's like crawling down a hallway, and it's like this is what happened after the first movie. I'm like, this is such a fucking convoluted nightmare of a movie series.
So true.
And so Spiral is going to be the 9th installment in Saw, but instead of calling it Saw 9, they're calling it Spiral from the Book of Saw, and I thought that was dumb, and I hated it. And
yeah, that is annoying.
I think it's confusing because it. Like, I get it. It's there to, like, obfuscate the fact that it's the 9th Saw movie and you're really fucking stretching this franchise out way too much. But, you know, you don't want to go to, like, you don't want to be at the level where you're, like, Friday the 13th, 15, and you're like, there's a lot of fucking numbers in this thing. Or, like, Left 4 Dead 5, and you're like, wait, how many fucking 4 Deads are there? Yeah. Like, at some point, it starts becoming, you know, silly. But I also don't. It doesn't make any sense in the context of like, okay, so is it continuing or is it not? Can I just watch Spiral without watching the other Saws? I don't know because it doesn't have a number. And so because it doesn't have well, I'm not going to watch it. I don't watch that. I'm saying but like as a consumer, like how the hell, like if I went to the movie to go watch Die Hard and it says like Christmas from the Book of Die Hard, I'd be like, what the fuck does that mean? What Die Hard is this? Is this like the 3rd Die Hard? 4th Die Hard? Like, I think all Die Hards take place on Christmas. What the fuck? Like, what does this even mean? Like, I don't know. It's just you.
After the second one, it was just a meme, really.
Mm-hmm.
Like, imagine if Final Fantasy was just like Sephiroth from the Book of Final Fantasy, and you're like, what the fuck does that mean? What Final Fantasy is that? Which one?
They have pretty obnoxious titles already. Like Lightning Returns Final Fantasy 13. It's like, okay, I need to do research about where but it's not the number. It's not the number because there's already a Final Fantasy 13 and then there's a Lightning Returns Final Fantasy 13, and because it's titled so badly, it doesn't even imply the fact that there's a Final Fantasy 13 2, which happened in between them because that's the third one. And then of course, also Crisis Core Final Fantasy 7, and also there's like 6 Final Fantasy 7s now, including a remake that's still called Final Fantasy 7, which is only part one of the remake. But then there's a demake of that remake and a mobile version of that remake, and there's a mobile version of 15. I want to die.
Yeah, there's a remake of the remake of Final Fantasy 7.
Yeah.
So like the PS5 is getting a remake of the remake, which is just like
They can't do a remake. It's just the PS5 edition of the game. Back in the day,
it's
game
called
was...
something else. It has its own title.
That's bad. That's bad.
Because
back in the day, like games would.
They should call the part 2 of Final Fantasy VII Remake Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core. Just the opposite of the other title. Just like how it's like Resident Evil, Biohazard, Resident Evil. Also, by the way,
I mean, Resident Evil's doing this too, though. Instead of Resident Evil 8, it's Resident Evil Village, and you're like, all right.
We've been over this though. It is called Resident
Yeah.
Evil 8 still in many.
Well,
like,
yeah,
it's
but
in
I'm
the
saying,
title.
like, putting
Even if it's
like,
mixed, how
no,
much it's included
that's
correctly.
what I
this
don't
one,
like, though.
It isn't.
It's
in
like-
this one, it isn't.
No,
it's
it isn't
really.
in the title.
They dropped the 8 in the title, at least according to Wikipedia.
It's remember the 8 is in there by the color, like it
It's just
colors over.
it's just the color. It's not the official title.
But but like the listing of the game is supposed to be Village, Resident Evil Village.
Yeah. According to Wikipedia, anyway. I didn't look too far. What I was gonna say is that back in the day, like Need for Speed 1 had
Even their own website calls it that. Like Capcom's own fucking website calls it
Yeah, I'm
Resident
just saying
Evil
that
Village.
the 8 is right there in the logo, so it's not ambiguous. You don't have to
but
you have to be really obtuse to be confused about like, oh man, which one is this one? It's like, well, it's right there. It says it. It's right there.
Just fucking say it.
Yeah,
Just
they
say it's fucking Resident Evil 8.
They can add it
Like,
to the text, and they should. But also, it's not the problem. There's the confusion problem. It doesn't exist here. Like there is no storefront where you can buy Resident Evil 8 without seeing the banner / logo somewhere, which says 8 in it. So it's like it's not these other problems where it's just like, what the fuck is this? I have to fucking research what's going on. It's not like me when I'm a kid being like, I'm gonna buy Half-Life 2 Episode 1 to start my Half-Life 2 adventure, and it's like, that's actually part 2. What? Yeah, so there's a whole game, and Episode 1 is the sequel to the original. It's like, what? Why isn't it Half-Life 3 Episode 1 or Half-Life Episodes Episode 1?
I just have a really big thing about numerical values.
You're about to say
products.
numerical numbers.
Yeah, I was. I have a problem with that. Like, if you're gonna commit to putting numbers at the end of your product, commit to the fucking number. Do it for life. I want to see you at fucking Assassin's Creed 27. I want you there. If you're not gonna fucking do that, then don't put a fucking number in there, because you're gonna piss me off when you cut it off halfway through the fucking franchise, going like, oh, I don't know, man. This looks like too many numbers. I think audiences are going to get upset that they don't have the first game.
No, that's not the reason. That's not why they do that. You know it, right?
Why? Why would they cut
do
it
that
off? Why
for
would
marketing reasons only. Like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Ubisoft.
You market it because you don't want people to feel excluded. You want people to buy the product.
You don't want them to feel like they have to like, oh, I didn't play the other one, so I won't know what's going on or whatever. So you just confuse them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then don't fucking put a number in your fucking product. Like, you don't have to do that. There's no rule that says you have to call every single game 1, 2, 3, 4 movie 1, 2, 3. You can just call it a fucking movie.
But the thing is, up until a few years ago, the number 2 and the number 3 after the title, that was really profitable because it would retroactively boost the sales of the older games.
Then commit.
But they don't
fucking leave.
I mean,
The market has
Ubisoft,
changed.
fucking Assassin's Creed is the nightmare version of this, because they went 1 and 2, and then they went Brotherhood, and then they went to the cursed subtitle that I would always think means your game's trash,
forget.
Revelations.
Yes.
Which
I like that one. I think that was my
it only
favorite.
took 4 games to get to Revelations. Revelations is trash.
Oh,
It's so much worse than the previous game. Brotherhood is the peak of the franchise.
Oh, maybe it's Brotherhood. I know one of those two I like.
Brotherhood's the one where you could press a button and he whistles, and then an assassin drops from orbit and instantly kills the person you're looking at. You're like, yeah, this is stupid. Revelation was like, now Ezio is old and we have to finish his story because it's so important, even though we basically wrapped it up in the first game. But now there's a trilogy of Ezio for some reason. But no, what's fucked up about, on top of the fact that they had a Revelations game, which Ubisoft keeps doing, because there's also a Myst Revelations and a Prince of Persia Revelations, all by the same fucking publisher. But then the next game was 3.
The 6th installment of the series.
And then it's like, okay, so you're saying that like each
The 7th
number
installment.
Well, yeah, because you got to count the Assassin's Creed PlayStation Portable game. You got to count Assassin's Creed
Altair's Chronicles
Liberation
and Discovery.
and stuff like that.
Liberation is after. Is the
Yeah, that's
Assassin's
after 3. Yeah.
Liberation.
But
yeah.
then you're like, okay, at least we have a rule. Clearly we have a rule now where we have a new number whenever we change like eras or whatever. Like, okay, so like like the original Assassin's Creed setting, that was very like that was, where they're like, please don't be offended that but with our depiction of Muslims, here's we're made by an multicultural team, like subtitle disclaimer at the beginning. Like that was Assassin's Creed 1, then 2 was the Renaissance, and then 3 was America, and then 4 was America. The next game was 4. They immediately jumped to 4 after 3, but it was just the fucking same area and assets and yeah. But that was a little bit of a side thing, in that it was a less noticeable handheld game, like the fact that like how people don't know that there's a second Altair game because it's on the PSP. But and there's probably handheld SEO games, so there's probably like 6 SEO games or some shit like that. But yeah, like immediately after establishing this pattern that like, okay, every time we change settings, that's going to be the new number, and then we're going to like spend a few games in that setting each time, because then we can recoup our losses of making an entire new open world of assets by making more games in that setting. Immediately, the next American game was 4. I'm like, God fucking damn it! And then they never numbered them again. And then of course there's always the funny example of like, what is it? Mario Kart just didn't have numbers for a long time. But then out of nowhere, one of them was called like 7. And then there was all these arguments online trying to figure out what the 7 Mario Karts were, because there's definitely more than 7. And they're like, I don't know which ones count. Why did they pick 7? Well, to get that late in the franchise and decide they're numbered.
At least it's not as bad as at least
I don't think there was ever a Mario Kart 2.
But the thing is, think of Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy... Which one is it? Is it Final Fantasy 6 that is Final Fantasy 3 in the US, and Final Fantasy 6?
Was it that late? I feel like the numbers were earlier than that when it was confusing.
Was it?
I feel like it was somewhere. I feel like that was contained to the first 5, but I could be wrong.
I could be wrong. Yeah,
I don't know. But at least I thought they got caught up by the time they got to like 6.
Sorry, for which one?
Because people always say 6 is the best one, and that'd be confusing if it wasn't always 6.
Are you talking about Final Fantasy?
Yeah. I think Final Fantasy 5 is indeed.
It's like 4 and
Final
2
Fantasy
are mixed or something.
They had some issues with they had an issue with 2 and 4. They got swapped around because they didn't do very well in the US. So like one came out, it didn't do very good because America didn't like RPGs, and then they brought 4 over, and that did really well, but that counted as 2 because that was the second game that we knew about.
Yeah.
And so then in Japan it was like, oh, we had like a ton of Final Fantasies, they were really good, and it's like fuck, this is Final Fantasy 2 but 4.
But
it's
honestly,
like, okay.
Honestly, I would say that when a game like Final Fantasy is brought over to the West, like, because there's such a huge adaptation in terms of the writing and even the interface and everything, the game has to be remade almost. Especially older games, they basically had to redo so much stuff that it kind of is okay. That it's just not the same number, but because it's still a different game. Ultimately, you play that. Like, what I mean is, I remember back in the day, people being like learning Japanese just to. I never knew anybody personally like that, but learning Japanese just to be able to enjoy.
Andrew wanted to be, not for Final Fantasy, but
no. But but there's such a wealth of Japanese only games that you really need to
learn Japanese so I can put the anime directly in my veins.
I mean,
straight from the tap.
I own a couple of Japanese Super Nintendo games that I bought when I was over there because I don't really need to read to play them. They work just fine. But
they can only have so much text to begin with back then.
Yeah, but also it's actually really good because those games are made for literal fucking babies. So it's a really great way to learn how to read Japanese at a basic level when your game is made for like the ages between 1 and 10 years old, and you're like, yeah, I'm smart enough to read as a 10-year-old, and I look at it, and I'm like, I can't fucking read any of this. I'm gonna just die. Like, it's. But it helps because again, it's very basic words. They're not using any like crazy katakana. I'm not sitting there like, what is a hydroscopic microscope? Like, I don't fucking like the kanji for that is probably a nightmare. But here it's just like here's jump, You want to learn how to say jump? It's like, okay, yeah, I could do that. I could learn that.
And hopefully
so
it's a Japanese word and not jump.
But the problem with Final Fantasy is that Final Fantasy likes to make up their own fucking words, which means you get weird ass fucking katakana. This is like the problem that One Piece has getting translated, is that like a lot of character names are kind of like silly puns or really like over the top word. Yeah, like one of the characters is called Cat Viper, but the word for it is it's like Neko something, and when you hard translate it, it's just translated to a cat that is a viper. And so like they had to like call him up and be like, is that the fucking name of your stupid character? And Oda's like, no, it's like cat viper, like, get it? And he's like, oh, that's not how this translates. So like, and Final Fantasy is the same way, where Final Fantasy is like, and then there's aether crystals, and you're like, what the fuck is a crystal that produces
the
aether?
C
Like,
and the L C and the Cth.
Yeah, that's why sometimes when you look at stuff, you're like, how the fuck where did you even come up with this name? And a lot of the times the name isn't nearly as it's not nearly as stupid.
Everyone just needs to hire the Yakuza localization team because they're all doing it wrong.
I mean, it costs a lot of money, Keith.
They
cheap.
put a lot of fucking money into those games to make them right.
Well, I mean, it's
way to fucking stumble at the finish line. Not localize it correctly for your biggest your second biggest market or biggest market, depending on how that balance lands between the United States and Japan for your game.
Yeah, that's the big problem of dealing with translations. That's a big problem with like, that's why, again, language is kind of important. You need to, if you're going to say things, you need to make sure that it's clear and understandable to the person that you're trying to get the point across. And that's why, like, don't fucking take away numbers out of your fucking products if people have built this like already pre-existing understanding of this world by its numerical value. Like, if I go to the store and I'm going to buy a new phone, I don't want to see that there's fucking 4 phones with different letters next to them, because that's not how you fucking named them for the past 20 years. Why did you do this? What is an iPhone X? Is that somehow different from an iPhone S? Why the fuck does Xbox do that too? Is the Xbox Series X different from the Xbox Series One? Like, what is an Xbox One versus an Xbox?
Like when they called it the Xbox 360, just so it wouldn't be the Xbox 2 versus the PlayStation 3, I was like, sure, whatever.
I wasn't.
That's fine.
No,
but the Xbox One and the Xbox Series X are both such nightmare names.
Excuse me, it isn't the Xbox Series X. It's just it's the official title is Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S. It's the whole thing
because they have two of them.
They have the two, and
because like there's two PS4s, but they're not named confusing, stupid things. Like they're different Xboxes.
Because
like,
they don't have to.
Because Series X and S sound like different console generations.
It's infuriating. Because
the PS5 Pro is like the PS5 is like the 5 and the 5 Pro or something, maybe, or whatever it is. I don't know. There's one of them has a disc. It might just be called the disc one. It might just be called Xbox PS5 disc.
Yeah, it's just
because it has disc.
I think so.
Yeah, I don't think they have different names,
which ruins its form factor a bit. But also, it looks stupid no matter what you look at. And
that's
also,
fine.
Like it would be stupid of me, not as somebody who needs access to things, to not get the disc one in case there's some stupid edge case where I need it for some reason.
But it's $100.
It's just like, it's infuriating. Like the Xbox 360 was the beginning of my resentment towards this idea that if you're going to change the name of something, then you best change it to in a way that makes sense. Like if you called it the Xbox 2, literally spelt out the 2, that would be fine. But to call it 360, I was like, what happened to the other fucking like 319 Xboxes? Where did they go? Did I miss out on them? Did I fucking wake up out of a coma? Like, what the fuck did you do?
358.
Whatever. I don't know math. See, sorry, I thought it was I thought it was 320.
They really should have called it Xbox 2, the new.
And this is the problem. Just call it Xbox 2, and then we wouldn't have Xbox One, which is the third Xbox, you fucking asshole.
I mean,
why would you do that?
That was the worst one.
Like, god damn it. Just fucking call it Xbox 3.
They did that knowing everyone calls the original Xbox the Xbox One, and then they called the third one the Xbox One. I'm like, I'm so fucking mad at you right now. I'm gonna be mad at you until I die.
They really topped it though. Because they like after the Xbox One, they should have called it Xbox 2. It would have
costed you $0 fucking to not be a jackass.
How do you look at the Wii U's branding problem and be like, we're gonna call the next one the Xbox Series S? That won't confuse anybody. That won't sound like it's just another Xbox Pro or whatever, or Xbox
Especially
One
because
X.
the Xbox
I guess was
One
their
X,
Pro.
Yeah.
Yes. That's what's more infuriating is that their fucking Pro version was the Xbox One X, which is like.
I mean, that's a prank. Somebody that's fucking
so many
memeing
people
got a job, and then they didn't catch that he was fucking with them because he literally made the acronym Xbox Series X. Oh wait, shit.
What?
No, it's an S. Shit. Never mind.
No, you're talking about the Xbox One X. Is Xbox?
So
right.
I forgot what it's
X.
called again. Xbox One X, XBOX. It's like they're just fucking with you. It's the Xbox. That's acronym is Xbox,
which is stupid because Xbox SX, which is XBSX or SBSS. That's like what a stupid fucking acronym. What? How did you do this? Like. Microsoft is a multi-billion-dollar company, and you couldn't fucking hire one single person to name your fucking product not shit?
For me, having the Xbox 360 name was worth it just to watch a bunch of people who are bad at math just dunk on themselves for years. Because they'd all make this... It was a bunch of fucking PlayStation fans that kept making the same joke, but the joke was never good because literally the first time it was said, it was already wrong mathematically. But they kept repeating it for like a decade. And it was because they would always say, it's called the Xbox 360 because you turn 360 degrees and walk away. It's like they don't know what a 360 is. You'd end up facing the same direction. You just face... That's a 180. It'd be called the 180. They did. It's not called the Xbox 180. And then they try to justify it, like, no, it's because you spin and then you just it was the I heard so many moments of like somebody not refusing to back down and trying to justify why actually it was a smart joke or whatever, and none of them worked, and it was really they would just embarrass themselves more because they were already wrong, but then they try to double down, and it's like, dude. You've had so many chances to hear that this thing doesn't make sense. It's immediately what anyone says the moment anyone else says this thing is how it's like, what the fuck did you just say? But somehow it propagated because children are stupid for like a decade. Like generation upon generation of new children would encounter this stupid ass phrase and they would keep repeating it. And it's like the early year. It's kind of dark in a way because it's like the early years of like Facebook groups essentially, where it's like clearly that is a completely insular community that just says this joke back and forth at each other and never encounters somebody that questions it for a second. And that's why so many people somehow have it breeding within them, because the number of people hearing it from each other is more than the people hearing it that will spread it to people that will then actually counter it. But it's like a what?
Yeah, sorry, I'm sort of interrupting you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You asked me to stop like 4 times.
I know. I'm just I interrupted you and I wasn't aware. I was. The thing is, do you know how irregardless is a new word and it's just new meanings for new words and all that? What if 360 now means 180? Because
that's just a mathematical measurement.
I don't like this at all.
The millennium, I can't even say words. The millennium starts on 1st January of 2001, not the year 2000, Keith.
I don't care. No one that's
that's a mathematical thing as well.
That's the stupid hill to die on.
I'm just kidding.
Because a millennium only comes up once per every like 20th lifetime, so there is no like standard or precedent that really is applicable to life in a way that like what a ruler means does.
I interrupted you for this. I'm so sorry.
I'm gonna fucking sideline this entire discussion on the discussion of Chris Rock from way back.
Right.
I'm gonna have to deal with, because I'm never watching fucking Spiral. I'm so done with the Saw franchise. I made it through like 4, and I'm like, this is not worth it. It peaked at 2, and then it was miserable. But
I think it peaked at 1.
But I'm gonna have to deal with my own case of trying to take Chris Rock seriously in a drama, and it's because he's gonna. I say he's going to. It's only in my future. It's in the past in real life. I just haven't watched it yet. But he's the protagonist of Fargo season 4, and Fargo's one of my favorite shows. And I'm like, oh, Chris Rock though.
Oh no!
And like, I get it that
is
Fargo
this like a
has
thing? Is he trying to rebrand himself?
Yeah, I don't know. But Fargo has a long history, and Coen Brothers in general, of casting comedy actors in their shows and movies that are themselves like kind of black comedy dramas, and it kind of works because they're kind of supposed to be funny in certain ways. But like, think about how much of a step down this is from the previous season being Ewan McGregor playing his own twin. 2 Ewan McGregors acting across from each other, looking completely different because they didn't do the identical twin thing. They're like wildly divergent, and like I think they might have been identical originally, but they're like because they have different lives and they live in different classes and so on, they look visibly different. Like one of them has massive hair loss, and one of them looks like they have like expensive fake looking hair plugs, and like they look like different people completely. But they're in scenes with each other as twins and stuff like that. And it's great. He's great and it's fun. Going from that to Chris Rock is just and like of course like Andrew will know season 1 had Martin Freeman and Bad Santa. What's his name?
Bad Santa.
Billy Bob Thornton and Martin Freeman were in that season. Then the next one had the guy from The Conjuring and stuff like that. Like they've had a decent number of Owen Wilson's brother, Owen or Wilson.
I don't know.
What's his name?
The fuck?
I can't remember Owen Wilson's brother's name. And that one had Kirsten Dunst and Luke Wilson, and it had the guy from the last season of Breaking Bad that's in a bunch of stuff now. Like I'm thinking of anything like that. Like they have a great series of actors in these seasons. And then season 4 is Chris Rock, and I'm like, oh fuck, I've never liked him in anything. First of all, among other things, he's got that comedy special that has done more damage than good, where he just keeps going on about the N-word, and he's like he does the distinction between like black people and N-words, and he keeps doing that, and it's like a whole shtick. And like I just remember hearing that on like you'd hear it like being played by white people growing up, and I didn't think about it that much at the time, but I'm like, oh my god, this is like giving white people like an instruction manual on like when the N-word's basically okay to use. And it's like no like it's up there with like the in Boondocks when they had like the N-word moment episode, which became a whole odyssey throughout those seasons and so on. But like a way worse version of that, where it works as like an instruction manual. Like there's classes of black people, like the good black people and the bad black people. That's Chris Rock, and it's just like
the thing that's referenced at the beginning of The Office. There's one joke that Michael Scott makes in The Office in the first season, where he's talking specifically about that thing. I've never seen that routine. But he talks about Chris Rock, and that's where I
hate that special. It ages worse every year, and like I look back in my life and I'm like side-eyeing people that I remember listening to that special, and like the way that they interact with race issues now and how they reacted to 2020 stuff, and I'm like, yep, that special put bad into the world more or less. That was not a helpful thing. But no, the other thing is like going through, like partly because he was like he was like this comedy special actor and stuff, and he had other stuff going on. Chris Rock is not in stuff. Like if you try to look at his movies list, there's no movies you care about ever.
He's just a comedian for
Madagascar is
right?
up there in his top 4, along with like Longest Yard, the fucking. The water, like the Water Boy style. Wait, was the Water Boy a different Adam Sandler movie?
Yes.
On top of Longest Yard being another football Adam Sandler movie.
Yes.
What the fuck? The Longest Yard. He was in that, but then he's in like whatever. Like who the fuck knows all these other things he's been in. I guess he had a show that was Everybody Hates Chris, which was about him growing up, and that's seems to be kind of listed as like the. It seems to come up like it's the highlight of his entire career, more or less, which is he does the voiceovers, and it's about a dramatization of his childhood and so on. But no, I had to come in here because I knew the comments were coming. That's Chris Tucker in Rush Hour, Andrew.
Oh shit, is it?
Yeah, Chris Tucker is in Rush Hour. So no, you can't even give Chris Rock that. Chris Tucker is in Rush Hour and Silver Linings Playbook, and most critically, Fifth Element with the weird hair and the dress and everything, where he's like that. That's all Chris Tucker. None of that is Chris Rock. Chris Rock's never been in an interesting movie.
Man, my God, he does have. I was saying that you were saying that he's never in anything, but
Wow, I'm sorry. I feel really bad now. I thought that was Chris Rock.
He has so many. He has a lot of movies to his name, though.
No, he's in so many movies, in part because he works
Yeah.
with Adam Sandler to some extent, and he's also just in a lot of like air quotes movies that are
I
like
guess because
comedy specials and events.
Yeah, that's true.
I guess my mind defaulted to assuming it would be a Chris Rock movie. Because the whole premise is just like
No, Chris Rock's not
goofy,
a good
silly-
enough comedy actor to be in Rush Hour.
What the fuck? Damn, I wasn't being that mean.
No, he's never been in a good movie.
He was in
Nope.
Madagascar. That's
And
a fun movie.
and his stand-up was bad too.
Wow.
Everything he did was bad. That's why I'm
This
fucking
seems-
horrified to watch Fargo season 4, because I'm like, if it was Chris Tucker, I'd be like, hey, it's the guy from Rush Hour. This could be fun. Maybe he could maybe he could pull it off. I don't know. But the like, because that's the shtick sometimes is they cast these comedy actors in these dramatic roles, and you get to see them flex and everything. But Chris Tucker's never been good at comedy either. So like, there's nothing to build from. I'm like, Chris Rock's never been good at comedy or anything. Like I've never liked him in anything.
I just found a movie that you forgot that he took part in because it's a really good movie with really good people. Lethal Weapon 4 has Chris Rock in it.
Does he matter in it?
Ah, come on. I thought you were going to react to it being Lethal Weapon 4. Because it's famously, Anyway.
I've never watched a single Lethal Weapon.
Well, it's like, it's
Checkmate.
no, yeah, I don't need to watch it. No, he does. He actually plays is one of the, it's not one of the main cast, but he has lines and whatnot. You know how it goes in a Die Hard style movie.
I
will say Chris
I don't know.
Tucker's filmography takes a fucking turn. It takes a turn because you're scrolling through. It's like, oh, that's not even that many movies. He was like Meteor Man, House Party, a couple of other movies, Fifth Element, the Jackie Brown, the Rush Hour trilogy, Silver Linings Playbook. And you're like, oh, it just kind of goes quiet after that. And then it's like, oh, he was in a couple things on TV, but not really. That's one live show, one award ceremony. And then after like almost a decade of silence, what comes up is Jeffrey Epstein, Filthy Rich. You're like, oh no,
Oh, crap.
I have not watched that, but that's not a good thing to come up in.
Nope.
Especially after being mysteriously absent for like a decade. You're like, oh no. It's like, hey, weird, Chris Tucker's trending again after having not been in a movie for a decade. I'm sure it's good news.
No, it's just that's just a documentary, right? That's probably is in the industry. It probably has.
The context is bad. It's not a documentary you want to be coming up in really for almost any reason, really.
But like Jeffrey Epstein was a very big name in the industry. Like, if there's gonna be people talking about him, stuff like that, they like it's not what I'm saying. It's not an indictment on Chris Tucker. It's just he has lines in the documentary, right?
It's just worrying. It comes across as an accusation, the way that like any association with Jeffrey Epstein comes across as like being associated with Harvey Weinstein just means that you like either profited from in some way being related to the stuff that he was like, because he's just so prolific with Miramax and stuff, or you were a victim of Harvey Weinstein. But coming up in any kind of listing that says Jeffrey Epstein, it's like that it comes with the assumption of complicitness, and then you're like, oh god, and then you have to look closer to find out that if they're not complicit or something. Like, it's a real rough starting point whenever you have somebody come up with next to that name. Like, oh no. Granted, it's like it's heavily weaponized. Like people are because he was involved in so many different people in general. Like that people. It's the popular thing of 2020 and so on, is to just anybody you don't like, you associate with Jeffrey Epstein, and you just say they're like, oh yeah, they sure bought a lot of tickets on that plane and stuff like that, and then people don't look any further and just assume you're telling the truth about it. And that's just an ongoing thing. It's not a fun topic. You know, it is a fun topic.
No.
To just immediately change track. I made I'm just gonna go straight to this. I made a poll on YouTube. I don't know if you saw it, but just to fuck with people.
I voted in both of them.
Well, the newest one today is I made a poll that's what's the best JRPG franchise. And the entries are Dark Souls, Legend of Zelda, Monster Hunter, and Yakuza, and that's the only options.
I love it.
Oof.
It's a cute Yakuza, obviously, as we well know.
I wanted to see more argument about what makes sense and what doesn't make sense, and to really have people like have a kind of a breakdown about what genre means more. But instead, it's mostly just people voting unironically, which is fine because I believe these are all JRPGs. And then people be like, "Oh my god, how could you make this list and not include Chrono Trigger or not include Dragon Quest or whatever the fuck?" Like they'll just say one thing. Like, why isn't this thing in here? What? Obviously, it's Final Fantasy, and like with the suggestion being that this list would totally make sense, but it has to have Final Fantasy in it, and that's like the only thing. Like that people like not picking up on the obvious sampling bias here of like the weirdness of this list, and like the fact that the people wanting Dragon Quest don't notice it also doesn't have Final Fantasy and doesn't have Tales of and doesn't have like Persona, for example.
These are all games that you've played in the channel. Did you play Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest?
I've never played Dragon Quest. I've played Final Fantasy on the channel, Type 0 and 15.
And the MMO, yeah.
And 14, yeah. And 14 is the best one, I guess, because Type 0 and 15 are really bad.
Oh, I think we've talked about it before.
Yeah, 15 seems all right at first and then just loses his mind. And then Type 0 was basically never good. The only part where it felt kind of good was the early chapters of like trying to like let myself like just give it time to get good. Like that was the best feelings I had of the game, was when I was giving it the benefit of the doubt for a while. Like maybe it'll get good later. Is like that's not a good sign.
I think there's such a, especially with story-driven games in general, it doesn't have to be JRPGs. It happens in a lot of genres. There's such an incentive to get attached to the story or to the characters or to the setting and forget the gameplay. The gameplay is literally there to pad the length of the game. And many times it's very obvious that the designers thought of it like that. But sometimes it's not as obvious. But the thing is, in our memories as players, and I include myself in that, for many reasons, but it's like we look back at a game and say, this game was really good, but we forget that only like half of it was actually the bits that were good. The rest was like either bad combat, like in Fallout New Vegas, or bad exploration, or random encounters that don't need to be there.
Oh yeah, there's a Noah Caldwell Gervais video that came out yesterday about Cyberpunk, and specifically he did this amazing connection that made me go like, oh my god, I'm the pigeon, where he took the Skinner's box metaphor / experiment and applied it to the act of playing Cyberpunk and trying to find the side quests that actually have content in them, because they're just buried amongst hundreds of trash side quests that just waste your time, as you saw, because I think you watched my playthrough. And like there's so many inconsequential trash things, but you just keep going because, like, a second ago, like in my case, like I just saw Jesse Cox and he had a bad dick operation, and it's like, man, poor Jesse Cox. And then the next one is just like thing I forget instantly. Next one is thing I forget instantly, and you're just like, you like 4 hours later, you realize you're still fucking pressing that button in the Skinner's box, hoping that the next quest turns out to be like secretly one of the ones you'll remember later, because those 4 hours that happen in between, you literally don't remember doing. Like, you're like immediately it zaps out of your brain. Like the actual because the game labels its quests so poorly in categorization of like level of quality and so on. You're so desperately trying to find the ones that'll actually be kind of neat that you actually are just the pigeon pecking at the button, because every random 10th to 14th time it might give you a treat. And it's like, that's the act of doing side quests in this bloated trash game, which is what you were talking about with the idea of like how much of a game can be taken up by not the thing you remember as being why it was good.
And like, yeah, absolutely, you're totally right in that. But the thing is, I felt that the ending was left a sweet taste in terms of writing. Like, I could see somebody walking away with that Skinner's box mindset.
And sometimes it's all that you remember is the final thing that happened. It's like, because the ending, this final emotion was okay.
Yeah, which is kind of the opposite, the perfect opposite of The Witcher 3, that has amazing side quests. Well, there's a few that are not amazing, but like 90% or 80% of the side quests are incredible. And then the ending is sort of like, well, here it is. I mean, it's very epic in terms of the action scenes and all that, but in terms of storyline, it isn't particularly, all that.
It's fucking like, nail biting though, because they make the fate of one of the major characters up in the air, and it has several different outcomes, and you can't just like you don't just pick a button at the end and that's what causes it to happen. So you're like, I don't know what's gonna happen. Did I do it right? And so like, the villain itself is like the walker north of the wall in Game of Thrones. It's like it never speaks, so it can't be that interesting to defeat it. And it's like the same thing goes for the Wild Hunt. It's like there's some sort of armored dudes that you stab and then they aren't there anymore. But they did have stakes to it that was made it really engaging despite that. Like pretty much just despite that.
Yeah, I like my biggest memory of The Witcher 3 is the side quests. Like many of the side quests, I do remember that some of them were bad, and one of them in particular was the worst. But in general, like the side quests were just refreshingly good. And like, I'm not used to seeing side quests like that in RPGs. Like, because you always think of side quests as like fleshing out I'm saying like a lot, like fleshing out the world, and they're supposed to allow you to immerse yourself in the world. Side quests are usually designed from a utilitarian perspective of, okay, we need quests that allow the player to get to this point in the narrative. And for The Witcher 3, no, that's what you're there to do. Like, if you play The Witcher 3 and only focus on side quests, you have a blast and you're good.
Yeah.
And they were clearly designed with more than just immersing you in the world in mind. And
the main quests are great too for the most part, but they specifically benefit from you doing the side quests, because the side quests inform and sometimes even change the results of the main quests.
Yes. But in terms of an ending, I thought the Blood and Wine DLC, the main quest specifically, the side quests conversely in Blood and Wine were terrible, but the main quest itself in the Blood and Wine
DLC. Get to hang out
DLC,
with your vampire bro.
There were too many fetch quests in the Blood and Wine DLC.
No, I mean the main story is you hanging out with your vampire
the main story,
bro.
Yeah. And the ending, like the stakes and all that, I thought it was great. It was very satisfying. But I can't believe,
same
like,
thing
I don't
with
understand how
the interesting story in Cold Heart, I think it was called, with the curse guy and his whole gambit.
That was a blast. I like that DLC. I think the Blood and Wine was more flashy as a DLC, but I think I like the Cold Hearts or whatever it's called.
Because one of them was basically just a main story bonus campaign, and the other one was an entire new region. So it had to come with all the side content and all of that, and they had to kind of do the whole rigmarole again, and it was kind of a bit much.
I did like the twists where you find out you're in that special place, and it's like, wait a minute, what's going on? I liked that bit. It's not going to hit the same when I play it again, because I know it's coming.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, the same company that made that game made Cyberpunk. It's not even the same company. because it probably isn't. They probably fired all their interns or something. You know how AAA is.
I mean, yeah, companies do hemorrhage talent so quickly and trade people around so rapidly that, like, yeah, every 5 years you do wonder how much each company even is the same company anymore.
Yeah. And The Witcher 3 was also like it stank of a well produced, so not well produced, or I mean, not necessarily well produced, but like the biggest problem of The Witcher 3, I think, in making a game like that is managing all the people that are going to work on it. And then what happens when you actually end up managing them properly, more or less, it is that the talent of those people that work on the game rises to the top. It's not a game that screams of authorial intent. It's a game that screams of, look at all these talented people that worked on this game, and somehow they managed to work together. And then Cyberpunk is the opposite of that. It's like, look at all this person, look at this one person that had an idea and then mismanaged the whole project from start to finish. It's just, oh my god! And then
this kind of has been just like a few years of like every major blockbuster project being mismanaged by the people in power. And just increasingly, you're just wondering how anyone gets in power in the first place, because clearly it's not merit, because no one knows what they're doing all the time.
Of course it isn't.
Like, because just like how on TV you watch Game of Thrones just crash and burn, and you watch Star Wars crash and burn. Like, these are like the biggest properties in the world, and no one can manage a fucking project. And then video games, which are hard to run, but like, you think somebody in the industry knows how to do it by now, but like all the biggest things are also just these nightmares because you keep having these, like, it's like at some point you're like, wow, like I guess on some level, I guess we got to at least hand it to Call of Duty that they know how to make a game every year and not like just fundamentally mismanage how to even do that.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
They're probably abusing their workers like everyone in the AAA industry
it's
is.
Activision. They are the worst, and also most of the Call of Duty games suck. But you're right.
But they're not fundamentally like failures.
They're not Cyberpunk 2077.
Like they're bland or whatever, but they do make like a fully featured new campaign full of all new levels and like all new content and so on.
Some of the new ones don't have campaigns.
And they go, well, there was like, I think that was just once.
Oh, okay.
Because they wanted to make like the big thing this year is Battle Royale. So instead of making a campaign, we're going to make a big continent to play Battle Royale on. And that was like what that game had. God. And I don't think people were totally psyched about that necessarily.
I remember when I was young, like this was probably 2008 or somewhere around there, where there was this one game, and I don't remember which game it was, but you might be able to clear my mind on that. There was this one game that was online only, released as for Xbox and for PC and stuff, and it cost $40 instead of the usual $60. But and they lowered the price because it didn't have any single player content, and people were like, "Oh no, it's too expensive for an online only game."
Titanfall.
It might have been, yes, it might have been Titanfall. I don't remember exactly.
Actually, I think Titanfall was full price.
Yeah, okay, so it might have been before that. Then I remember like it was this big. At least in the communities I was part of, they were all upset, and there was like a general consensus that you shouldn't pay that much for an online only game, because like you could pay for Counter-Strike was the big thing, and it was like $15. It has been $15.
It's interesting how nonsensical it is, because like people kept buying these $60 games, and because we have tracking data, we can know that because I grappled with this in Halo 2. Like I would be playing the Halo 2 campaign, and all my friends would be playing online still, and I would play online too. But like I'd actually go back and play the campaign again every like month or so while I was playing, because I was playing the game so much. And it's like everyone like, why are you playing the campaign? And you look at people's achievements, and they've never played the campaign of Halo 2. And you're like, wait, what? And like, and as we go further and further, we have more and more data, and we can see more and more like a shockingly large percentage of, for example, Call of Duty players never play the campaign at all in the entire, and like for several consecutive games in many cases, and yet they feel like they're getting ripped off if it's not there. So it's like, and so yeah, there's I remember it being an ongoing thought across several podcasts I was listening to, that people kept arguing this point that like, hey, maybe just don't make a campaign and put out your game for $40 and just make the thing that everyone buys the game for anyway, like Overwatch did, for example, and just just commit to that and just be chill with that, and that's fine, right? Like that should be cool. And I heard that across several podcasts, and like you don't hear the dissenting audience, so I don't know what their thoughts are. But like, and I agreed with the idea, and I thought that was a perfectly valid idea until it happened. Then it happened, and people were really mad in several instances of there being multiplayer only games, and it might be because there were franchises that previously had campaigns. But
yeah, of course,
it was
nobody
definitely
complains that.
Yeah. It was like, and there would be people like there are certainly people who like the campaigns of Call of Duty games. Like, that was my first 360 experience was Call of Duty 2, and I loved that campaign.
It
at
was
the time.
so good. I liked it.
It was a really cool World War II thing. Like that was great.
You throw the potatoes instead of the grenades. I mean, how
it was so hard.
It was really hard
because you try to play on the highest difficulty and get through it and so on, and like, the tank came through the wall, and what's happening? It was really overwhelming, but it was my only 360 game for a while, so I was trying to make it count, and had a great time with that. And so, like, yeah, like this is gonna be the portion of the audience that only wants the campaigns, or just also wants the campaigns. But statistically, that they are a minority of the audience. But the way that internet discourse works is there was this overwhelming outrage about the fact that there was about a handful of shooting games trying to not have a campaign for once, and it was like, isn't this what it's like? Isn't this what people wanted? Or why are you mad at this thing being gone that you never used to begin with? And it's like, to some extent, it could just be the minority group just being very, very loud, and on the other hand, it could be like, just the internet loves being mad. They love that no matter what like side you're on or what type of person you are or what group it is, like everyone seems to snowball into these rage things, and they all get mad about the thing that's the thing everyone's mad at this month within your sphere. And so to some extent it might just be that people just kind of getting some catharsis out of shouting about a thing. But it was definitely a big whiplash when the thing that I thought was clearly a good idea happened, and then no one seemed to think it was a good idea. But then, of course, like Overwatch comes out and it's fine apparently. So I'm confused.
Yeah,
because I don't remember I don't remember people being mad at Overwatch,
or the Player Unknown Battlegrounds or Fortnite.
Yeah, but PUBG was a $20 like indie game, so it's like a different expectation. I think it was $20, and it's like a Steam release and so on.
PUBG was $60 for the longest time, and they rarely did discounts.
Was it $60, Andrew? I thought it was $20.
I'm pretty sure it was full price.
Are you sure you're not thinking of DayZ?
No, DayZ was just a
because DayZ was an Arma mod, and Arma I think was $60 maybe or more. Not more, but more than 20.
Yeah.
I thought DayZ was the one that was like, what the fuck? I have to pay.
You had to buy Arma 2.
Yeah, I didn't think that PUBG was $60.
I thought it was not recently, obviously, but
no,
for like
it looks like it's
at least
30.
I'm wrong then.
Yeah, I don't think it was ever 60 because it was always like this weird early access indie game thing.
Oh, let's see. PUBG original.
Indie might be pushing it a little bit. Oh, it looks like it's from the same developer that made Terra Online.
Yeah,
so maybe not entirely indie, but
30.
It felt indie because of its fucking production value. So it gets an aesthetic pass. But yeah, I just remember people listfully being like, "Oh, I wish Overwatch had a campaign because they like the characters and their animations and their personalities, and the fact that there was nothing to it felt disappointing." But I don't remember being like, "Oh my god, how could you put out a shooter without a campaign?" It's because it's like, yeah, Rainbow Six Siege, Overwatch, like this, Counter-Strike. It should be completely normal to just make an online competitive game and not have to make a campaign. But apparently, if you have like the baggage of having previously had campaigns in that IP, then people that's going to be a big problem.
I also think that a game like Overwatch doesn't really work. A multiplayer game like Overwatch doesn't really work if you have a campaign that supports all that cast. Not because the game itself is not going to work or the multiplayer.
It would be so hard that it's basically never happened before, which is definitely the challenge that they're facing in their upcoming game.
How do you write a campaign for such a tremendous cast that is so unique? Like, it's 30 main characters.
Do you mean story?
What?
Yeah, how do you write a story for... It's an enormous cast.
Dynasty Warriors. Dynasty Warriors has explored this exact problem in two different ways, and I like both of their solutions. So one thing Dynasty Warriors does is games 1 through like 6. There was a separate campaign for every single character, but each campaign was only 6 missions long. And so
Yeah, that's a good solution.
what happened, and it's usually certain milestones happened for everybody. Like everybody went to Hulao Gate to fight Lu Bu in like mission 1 or 2. And depending on who they were, they had the Yellow Turban Rebellion, which Zhang say hello to my magic. in mission 1, the voice acting was incredible. And then they split off because it became after the first 2 missions, it became the 3 kingdoms warring at each other. And so depending on what character you picked, they were in different battles in that process. And then you got a different ending for each character. But it was like relatively minor customization per character. It was kind of like wow, look at everyone's forking branch through this thing. But then Samurai Warriors did a different thing where Samurai Warriors did... Here is a like 6 to 10 mission campaign per faction, and there was like 6 factions, and each of those factions you would then pick a different character within the roster of available people for that faction. And then like 7, I think Final Fantasy 7 and 8, Dynasty Warriors 7 and 8. Either I think they also had like I think it was a campaign for like Shu, Wu, and Wei, which were the 3 warring kingdoms. And so you'd play through the entire story of those from front to back, and as certain characters dropped in and out of that story, they became available and unavailable in the roster as people you could play. So it became about the overall group instead of the individual. And then I think if you beat them all, you unlock the Jin campaign, which is how that all ends ultimately. And so like they have different takes on it. So like Overwatch could have character specific campaigns, but you can't really, right? Because it's 4-player or 6-player. I guess it might be 6-player, huh? I don't know if there'll be 4 or 6-player in the campaign.
All the PvE stuff is 4-player.
Well, it'd be easier to fill out, I guess. So if it's 4-player, you can't have character specific campaigns because they'd be anyone. But you can have like a Blackwatch campaign and an Overwatch campaign and an Omnic campaign, for example. But you just have to have the characters to support those rosters, and then you just pick people from that list, because the existing 3 story missions there's 3 story missions in Overwatch so far, and in those ones there's 2 modes. There's the canon mode, it's not called that, but the story mode version that shows you a cutscene that sets up the mission, and those 4 characters in the cutscene are the 4 characters you have to pick, so you kind of fight over them like the 4 characters in Left 4 Dead. And that's all you get. So somebody has to play Mercy, and etc. But then you play the fuck around mode, where it's just you can do various remixes of that mission, and the entire roster is available, but there's just no story context for it anymore. But it kind of works in that way. Like they can do it that way in the overall thing if they want to. The way they're talking about doing it is that you can pick a surprising variety of characters, and they have a bunch of unique interactions and conversations that happen between the characters at random, in addition to the main plot point ones that are happening for the story purposes. So in that way, it is kind of like the conversations between characters in BioWare games or Left 4 Dead, where they start having these conversations back and forth, and it's just kind of luck based when they'll show up, and they might even progress linearly in some way, but there's like custom cutscenes that aren't completely set in stone, because you might pick different characters entirely. But I imagine just to make the story make sense, there has to be a context. Like you can't do like Genji and Widowmaker working together unless the story goes there, because they are not friends.
Yeah. I was thinking purely I was thinking purely along the lines of a traditional shooter storyline. So I wasn't even thinking of anything like Dynasty Warriors. But
yeah, I mean that's the thing though, is like there's an expectation for, it's an FPS, so it must have an FPS style story. And that's not necessarily a rule. You don't have to follow that. And I think that's one of the big reasons that Call of Duty is such a boring story.
I think there also are FPSs that have factions with separate campaigns.
Sometimes
you can definitely do it. Yeah. Medal of Honor, the one with the lady people were mad
Medal
at?
of Honor usually
that one had
multiple
separate campaigns in it.
Yeah. There's ways to do it. It's just shooter campaigns obviously usually get the short end of stick because that's not the thing you invest the money in. You invest the money into the multiplayer, the thing that makes people play it for like 20 years.
But you only do that if it's monetizable. The 20 years. If
that's not true.
Well,
it's actually not true. Modern Warfare 4 would have kept going forever if not for a new game coming out. Like,
well, that's how they monetized it.
I'm saying that it didn't need like DLC or anything to keep. Well, it needed DLC maps. It needed new maps to keep going. But like, if you make a game, and Overwatch is a good testament to this. If you keep adding new content to a game, but there's not a necessity to make a new game.
But you also need to see that the not Obsidian. What's the name of the company? Blizzard. Sorry, Blizzard has a vested interest in making sure that a lot of people continually play Overwatch because they gain money from people playing Overwatch through the loot box system. So
sure, but that's not that's not the thing that keeps people coming back. People don't come back to Overwatch because they want to open a loot box. They come back to Overwatch because they want to play the new content, play different characters, play like. There's so much you can play Overwatch and you can play 40 hours just with one character and then play a whole nother character for another 40 hours. Like that's kind of the appeal, but also the other appeal is that that's why the event stuff happens. That's why there's so many different modes. That's why there's like the whole arcade exists. That's why there's custom game modes. That's why like they keep adding new stuff because the more a campaign isn't a requirement. It's nice, but you can supplement it by just having a bunch of other things to do in the game. Overwatch obviously wants to come up with a single player aspect because you need something like
but you need something single player though. It's co-op.
No, but you can play it. I believe I'm pretty sure you can play the.
I don't know if you can play with bots or not, but really single player is just a misnomer that people often apply to having a PvE campaign in something.
Yeah, but I mean,
let's go play the single player together. This is a sentence people will say unironically.
Playing the
360 all over again.
Non-PvP combat or content in a shooter game, specifically a PvP shooter game, is that's nice. It's nice having that alternative content, especially for people who just don't enjoy the PvP aspect. I mean, I don't know. It's the really dumb throwaway line is like, I have friends who like Overwatch, but they don't like to compete in Overwatch. I'm like, well then maybe they should play like Portal because it's a non-competitive, or like Left 4 Dead. It's a non-competitive first-person shooter. But yeah, their idea is that they, obviously you want to try to make a game that requires the PvE environment stuff is probably a lot easier to make than the PvP stuff. Because with PvP stuff, you have to balance a lot of shit around all of these characters. And there's probably some there's a department there's like a subset of people who are the balancers, and they probably have this shitty spreadsheet. And anytime they bump a number, a whole bunch of other numbers change, and they have to look and go, oh, fuck, that's going to completely just destroy somebody else. And it's probably excruciating. But in a PvP environment, who cares?
You just get to have a wacky, fun adventure, and now May turns into a wrecking ball. Whee!
Yeah, the only thing that matters is if the content is interesting. It doesn't matter if, May's too strong or Reinhardt's too strong. That doesn't mean anything in the context of PvE. All that matters is that the experience itself is enough fun and challenge to keep people wanting to play it more. That's it. I'm going to be honest with you. It's going to suck. The Overwatch PvE stuff is going to be absolute shit and not worth the time to wait.
That's my concern.
It's going to be bad.
Because the PvE content in the game right now is so awful. But it's also it's also clearly never the priority. It's here's some generic omnics that just walk at you and shoot, and you shoot their head and they just walk on paths. Then there's the Orisa there's the Orisa version, and there's the Bastion version, and those guys do weirder things. And then there's the little fucking mousers from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that come after you and stuff. There's a couple of variations, but none of them are very interesting. But they're all more interesting than the standard enemy, at least. But the big concern, is can they make enemies that do a bunch of crazy stuff and make the game in any way even vaguely as dynamic as the multiplayer is, because the problem is, like, the whole point of Overwatch is that you have this entire cast of completely unique characters that have almost no overlap in how they behave compared to each other in many cases, and then you have this insane multiplayer game that has this crazy amount of depth, not just because each character has a decent amount of depth to them and you can spend so many hours learning how to play them better, but also because they're part of what's so hard about all those characters is how they interact with all those other characters, and like, so the dynamic of the game is so fucking crazy in a way that like no other game really exists to fully capture. Like, even if you take it a TF2 as a base level thing, like TF2 just doesn't have 30 plus classes. Like, so like, even if you compare it to TF2, it's like, at this point it's a completely different thing, just on the sheer level of weird variety and level of strangeness. Like, here's characters that have physics based attacks with knockback, and here's crowd control people, and here's shield people, and here's hit scan versus like bouncy grenade versus all these different interactions. It's such a weird game, and that gets really highlighted whenever I play. Like obviously support, like playing as Mercy, it's like you're playing a different game than everyone else, because in many cases you're not even engaging with the combat directly. Then you play as Symmetra, and it's like, I put turrets down and I put teleporters down, and I have a giant infinite shield wall as my ult, and these are just fundamentally different interactions than the rest of the cast has. And the fact that the game's just like 30 plus characters of that or whatever is just fucking ridiculous. So to take all those characters and be like, yeah, now go into this Left 4 Dead map and fight just a bunch of mobs. Like, go, all of you, like, when you, like, I always remember playing King's Row, because we probably played that one the most, and it's just not very interesting, despite being my favorite Overwatch map. You walk into a garage and defend it while a meter goes up. Then you go over to like a cart, like the payload, and you ride it through town, I think, to defend it. And it's like, yeah, it's just wave upon wave of the same 2 or 3 enemies coming at you, and you just kind of keep shooting them. And in many cases, the characters fundamentally don't feel designed for that kind of experience. Like, when I played someone like when you play as Mei, you're like, I mean, we really prioritize just putting out damage in every direction at once. Like, a Torbjorn can do that, but like Mei is like, what am I for? Or like Ashe is a character designed around team fights. Like, she has X number of shots to fire, and then she has to sit there and reload for like 30 seconds, it feels like, if she's completely empty. If the level is just endless robots coming at you from multiple directions at once all the time, and you can only do single target shots at most of them all the time, and then you have to reload for an eternity each time, like that ebb and flow just makes that character feel like trash for that entire game type, which is the only type of campaign mode they have, is those 3 maps that play relatively similarly. That's why it was encouraging to see the BlizzCon stuff about Overwatch, where they kept showing, like, look at all our crazy enemy types we're going to add, because that's what the game desperately needed. Is if they're going to have a campaign, it has to have really dynamic and weird enemy types, and they have to behave interestingly and dynamically and challengingly, because if you just make us fight lines of dudes that keep walking at us, then like, it's really monotonous and not very interesting.
I think something that they didn't change in the PvE quests in Overwatch is something that it could change in Overwatch 2, is how Overwatch 1 is mostly around centered around the cooldowns, whereas traditional shooters are mostly centered around ammo capacity. And sure, there's some cooldowns here and there with certain attacks in normal shooters, but it's usually about the ammo. And because Overwatch is just sort of throws that out the window. Actually, there is no ammo at all in Overwatch. So yeah, unless you have
except for the part where you like shoot a gun and reload it. But yeah, you don't run out of ammo overall. Yeah. There's no pickups.
But in a single player game, usually ammo is very important. Conserving ammo is using the certain grenades that when you need to use them. So
there's always like that question of like, oh, I got the rocket launcher, but like, do I just fire it now or do I hold on to it because I'm probably not going to get more?
Yeah. Do you think that needs to be changed to make it interesting? No,
don't do that. If you do that, you basically turn into like Valorant, which is just a shitty version of Overwatch. Like, there's the problem with ammo is that
I think you might mean for the PvE part too.
Yes, exclusively for the PvE.
I don't think ammo would in any way help the PvP.
No, that would ruin the game. It's basically.
I don't know. Yeah. What's really the point?
Your Reinhardt hammer breaks and you have to go get another one around the corner.
So here's the thing. Not only is there a lot of characters that this becomes really convoluted for, Like, for example, does Lucio have ammo?
Yeah, good point. Good point. I mean, they could come up with something.
What is that? What does that
He reloads
mean?
something.
That's what I mean, though. Like, you
don't know
don't
what
think
it
about
is.
that. You don't think of he reloads batteries. He throws batteries into his thing, and that's his reloading animation. But like,
not even.
how many fucking batteries is this guy going through? Is he literally just throwing batteries on the fucking ground? Like, do you have to go? Where do you have to go to every electronics store and just buy out the battery section?
But the real question is, what happens when Symmetra picks up Lucio's gun?
Well, technically, it's
She gets
infinite ammo
weaker because it's a worse gun.
She can
there's so many-
generate. Well, she generates objects from light, so technically she could just generate the batteries from light and power the gun that way.
What I'm saying is, like, traditional shooters are obviously very, very different. Like, from a design perspective, it's not even about just writing a story or designing levels. It's just the fundamental mechanics of the game are so different from what Overwatch is. And I think that's a good thing in regards to Overwatch, is that they were able to look at the basic shooter mechanics and saying, okay, so this whole thing about having different weapons for the same character, forget that. Nothing. This whole thing about having ammo, no. Cooldowns, that's what we're here for. And that's why Overwatch is maybe a little bit more of a MOBA than it is a shooter competitive arena thing. But it's also obviously a shooter. But I think they need to take a step back if they're going to make that PvE, because otherwise it's just like Keith was just talking about.
The biggest, scariest thing about the PvE is the fact that the content for the main game is being strangled right now to make the PvE, because the sequel has value in that, like, you have a diminishing player base at some point, so you want to like invigorate it and be like, wow, new release. Because if you can put out an Overwatch 2 and it's basically just Overwatch 1 but relaunching and so on, then you can be like, oh man, look at all these new people we're going to bring in because it's a new game, and that's what sequels do, and it's like there's a value there. But insisting on holding back the content, any more content happening for the current game at this point for years, is an incredibly brutal way to like save up the resources to make the sequel, especially when you find out that like it's not just like, at first it was like, okay, they're going to make an Overwatch 2, they're going to slow down on making characters for a bit, and at the time it felt like, okay, that means that this year we just get Echo, and then next year we have Overwatch 2, so it'll be worth it, right? And Overwatch 2 will probably have like 8 new characters, who knows, and like 6 new maps and a new mode and stuff like that. Like, that seemed like the trade-off we were going to be getting, and it'd be totally worth it. But then the heavily believed release date, like surely if they're kind of cutting all off content, that it must be coming out next year, right? Became, no, it's coming out next year, and they're still not saying anything about releasing more content for the original game. And you know that they're putting so much of their resources into making this PvE mode that might just be trash despite all the waiting. It gets also, a lot harder to be optimistic about it.
Also, it's Blizzard. They might just trash it all and just say, we are not doing it after all. After
that would be a nightmare.
They do that so often, though. They did that with a
Overwatch 2 is going to be finished. I don't have a doubt that they're actually,
at this point, the guns to their head a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, they also, Blizzard does have a gun to their head really hard. You could tell by the fact that, like, during the BlizzCon thing, they clearly were like, look, you fucking got to show something to these fucking people or we're going to be screwed.
There was some desperation to it they were trying to play off.
They're basically in a Zoom call like, hey, anybody want to talk about things they're excited for in a game that may come out soon?
Look at these beautiful maps, which is much easier to show because they were terrified. Like they almost showed us Sojourn. They still haven't showed us Sojourn, and that's the only new character shown in any of the stuff. This is one new character, and we don't know what she does.
Is that the Canadian tank style thing?
No, that's she looks like just like a soldier. Or no, she's the one with the light. She has a rail gun.
She has a rail gun, but it looks like a machine gun sometimes, so it's confusing and not very well explained. And I think she has mechanical legs.
Yeah.
And so like she shows up in a couple cutscenes, and I don't even know if she spoke in them. But
she speaks in them.
But like we don't know what her buttons do. We don't know what kind of character she plays like. She just runs around on the ground and she shoots a gun, but it's a glowy gun. But I'm like, ultimately, it's like, is this just another character like Soldier that runs around and shoots a gun? Like, it's not like they're hinting at like wrecking ball. Like, we're like, what is this status quo change? What does that even mean? He's a wrecking ball. He like swings around on a chain and slams into people. What's the game going to be like in 2022? Crazy. I can't even imagine. It's like, oh, it's a lady runs around with a gun. All right.
That does.
It's and the I don't know. At the end of the day,
like the way the demo plays, it feels like you're watching Mercy shoot her gun, and that's the preview of the character. Like, she must do stuff, right? But they didn't show any of the things. That was all they had for us.
What was weird is that she had buttons too. Like, they showed the HUD with her buttons,
and they pressed none of them.
They pressed none of them, which is like, I mean, I get it. It's, again, the game's coming out next year. They're probably going to change her entire kit 4 times since that video was recorded last year. Like, I don't have a doubt that, you know, she's not going to be the same character.
Yeah, like, balancing is hard, so they kept showing stuff like they showed Soldier's, like, bumper car mode, where his heal field would follow him around and would have a knockback on enemies that entered it. And
but that's
they're
only
like,
for PvE stuff.
Yeah, but they're also like, yeah, we already got rid of that. That was bullshit. that was too powerful. It's like they can't even be sure that anything they're showing us now will exist in the game. Like Reinhardt having 2 fire strikes.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like there are parts I get it. I get that Overwatch is, you know, it's a game that I really want a sequel to, but I get that it's a game that you can't just like rush this shit because it will suck. Like, it will suck hard. And the only downside is I know that no matter how much time you take, you're never going to make the PvE campaign good. And it's always going to frustrate me that I'm going to suffer what will amount to just like a very dry game for the next year, just so that this like suboptimal PvE experience can come out and I can go, cool, but no thanks. I just want to play more PvP.
You and
stuff.
Many other people as well. That's the thing. You're not alone in that.
And like, again, I get the necessity for it, but like, again, if I'm being honest with you, the idea of a skill tree implies one thing to me. You're gonna have to play this shit over and over again, and that doesn't mean it's gonna be good. Like, unless you're gonna be leveling up these like character trees basically all the way to max every single map, or they're gonna have like 500 maps.
Yeah, I definitely get the feeling it's going to take a while to level each character, and it's going to be like a commitment. And there's so many characters that I'm like, oh.
Yeah, there's so many characters. There's no guarantee that all of these characters are going to have good worthwhile upgrades compared to their normal stats. Do their like PvE stats come into play with the PvE or PvP
there
stuff?
Better be like a free respec or something, because I'm definitely concerned about like grinding for hours on a character you like, then you hitting that promising looking ability, then you use it and you're like, oh, all right, I want to get on the other tree. Can I reset but not start over? Importantly, not start over. Can I just move my points?
I would imagine no. Why would you do that? It's better. It sounds like because
instead you could put that as a currency item in the battle pass.
Like, look, I've seen this before.
Exactly.
I've seen this so many times before, especially Payday 2 is the best example of this. Payday 2 is a game that has a metric fuck ton of maps, and it has a skill tree, and there's like a fuck ton of skill trees. There's skill trees for like 17 different classes, basically. And
I hate that game has a skill tree.
And you could do like so many different runs and so many different builds. And you know what? The thing that, like, at the end of the day, the way that I walk away from that game is, I just want to fucking kill people. Jesus Christ. Why is this so fucking hard? I just want to fucking kill people. Like, I don't know why I have to have like this stupid fucking drill spec so that my drill doesn't break every 30 fucking seconds while I'm doing something. And I need to also be able to have the armor to fucking kill a guy wearing like a truck on his body. Like, come the fuck on, man. I don't want to. And it's like, oh, well, your teammates do that. I also want to do that. I also want to play the game. I just
hate that as a skill tree, because it's a co-op game about doing a heist. So like I just want to be a skill based thing of let's all work together to do this thing, not like
Exactly.
oh, but I gotta play this incomplete version of the game for 20 hours until I finally unlock the version of the game that has the mechanics that make the game feel full later. But then it's also like, oh, these mechanics make the game easier, so the more time you are and the better you are, the game also just gets easier for you by giving you more easy like things to help you do your job. And it's like, just give me the fucking buttons, just let me use them. It's up there with like I also hate that in Paladins. It's stupid. It's so stupid that you level your heroes in Paladins, so you're just not fully featured at the beginning. So you're entering matchmaking with an incomplete character, and you fighting. It's not like your enemies are incomplete. Like they have every skill tree and every card and every fucking thing they can do with their character, and your character is literally less good. You just straight up have entire builds and styles that you could be doing with your character that are entire gameplay mechanics that you just can't play until you play as that character for like 10 hours or some shit. And it's like, that's actively bad.
The moment Call of Duty introduced that in their online multiplayer game, I think it was after 4?
4 added that, yeah.
4 added
I was back
itself.
when I was still playing Call of Duty games. I played 2, 3, and 4, and 4 had a progression system that unlocked weapons and stuff. I'm like, excuse me?
Yeah, it's like the moment they put that in, I knew that that wasn't a franchise for me. And ever since then, games that have that, I'm just like, yeah, this is just like I'm playing every once in a while. I play Dead by Daylight with Bumpy McSquigums and some other streamers, and
it's got progression and unlocks and skill trees, and it's like just make the game, just play the game.
The only way that
the game should be static
is that if you have like a custom map and with friends, you don't play like open games. You just play it with friends.
So never play public games because people just fucking quit and the match is useless.
I'm not. The game's a little bit different, but the thing is, they have like all these overpowered abilities in online in public games, and I don't because I didn't pay for the microtransactions. Really, that's how you get them.
I hate it so much.
I just want to go back to like Halo 2 days where you paid $15 for a couple of maps, and then in like 6 months the maps are free because they released a new DLC pack. And
what a cool system that we never got back.
Yeah, like what the fuck happened?
Including in Halo, I think.
Like, no, Halo never did that again either.
Yeah.
It was just like wow, this is amazing, Bungie. Could we do this forever? And the industry went, no.
Yeah, it was Halo 2. Every 3 months after release, a map pack that was like 3 maps came out. And every time that a new one came out, the previous one became free forever.
Yep.
And was then added.
Nice.
And they had 2 sets of matchmaking. They had the like base level matchmaking and the premium matchmaking, and it was the premium matchmaking was just the maps but plus the DLC that currently costs money. And so the moment they made the previous maps free, they could then get filtered into the everybody matchmaking, so that and grow that content base for just on a base level. So it was a staggered thing, kind of like how when MMOs come out, only the newest expansion costs money.
Yeah.
Oh, is that how it works?
Yes.
Pretty commonly, only because they quickly realized they can't keep going that way with like World of Warcraft and stuff like that. Like you can't.
I thought you had to buy all the things.
Yeah, especially since so many things are bought like discs. Like they're bought like as a disc at Best Buy and stuff like that. Like a lot of people buy games that way still. You can't just keep making Best Buy stock every previous expansion. Like I worked at Best Buy when Lich King came out, which is when I quit WoW right before that. And so we had World of Warcraft and Burning Crusade and Lich King, and you had to buy all 3 of them in order to play Lich King. And that's just
those were the first few.
That was the first 2 expansions were Burning Crusade and Lich King, and then you had Cataclysm and Pandaria and Draenor and Legion and Battle for Azeroth and now Shadowlands. You can't have people go to Best Buy and buy 8 discs in order to be able to play your game. No one will buy them first of all. That's absurd.
Yeah.
And also like pretty fucking ballsy to like demand Best Buy has like a Sims style dedicated section just for stocking all the different variations of World of Warcraft so people can buy them all in a linear fashion. Like nobody is The Sims. You can't get away with that.
And also, The Sims doesn't quite work like that. It's you can just mix and match.
Yeah, but no, they weren't linear. But yeah, when I worked at, we had a whole Sims shelf, that was like
Yeah, that's
top to
common.
bottom, and it was just the same green box with different things on the cover that had different, like, this is the one with pets and stuff like that.
It is, yeah. It's just comedic to look at, and like I don't know, I don't know what the financial situation was there for Bungie. I don't know if like that
If it
model
worked or not.
Yeah, I don't know if that model was like a
They were,
terrible design.
they were essentially
choice, but,
pioneering console DLC.
but
That
yeah,
was
but like
they were the
as
first
a-
ones practically to do it.
As a consumer, I thought I was getting my money's worth. I didn't
Yeah.
feel like I was getting screwed.
Yeah,
Like,
I
it
paid
seemed
for
like-
every single one of them, and it seemed fine.
Yeah. And like I think the nicest part was that it went free. So like I had friends who, who couldn't afford to buy them. And it was like, okay, well, like, I'll play the DLC stuff alone and we can play the regular stuff together. And then, in like 3 months when the new DLC comes out, I'll buy that and then we can still play those new maps together. And it's like, it seemed like a really good balance. And then you get to later, then it became but we could just keep charging. Like people will still buy it. We just never stop charging for it. And again, it's, much like loot boxes, no one really the consumers as a whole didn't stand up and go like, we're not going to fucking do that. And so they just keep,
No, they actually did the opposite. They bought them like crazy.
They just bought them like crazy, which is weird because there's
They
like
were
this
designed
weird,
to be like that.
but there's
It's not weird.
it's very weird. It's very weird.
They do it on purpose, though. They
No, he's
design
saying
it-
it's weird. He's saying the audience. It's weird that the
Yeah, I'm
audience was
saying
like
it's-
they
I'm saying it's
embraced
weird
it.
that- I'm saying that's weird that consumers embrace this terrible design. Like we had a better choice. We actually literally had a much better system, and everyone decided
people are easy to manipulate
no.
on market levels.
It's frustrating,
Yeah.
and it sucks because now I'm in the
And
position
like
where
like I've shown with my fucking my growing loot box stack that people take weird issue with. People get bought. They'll defend the system. They'll get mad at you for not engaging with the system because it's like when somebody says they're vegan, like this. It's like they take it as a judgment that somebody else doesn't do the thing that they do because what, you think you're better than me?
yes,
Well, yeah.
yeah, that's it. I am better than you. I don't have to play. I don't have to do this stupid thing. Like I don't have to buy battle passes every month to play fucking.
Look
video
forward to a
games.
battle pass in Overwatch.
I think
I
there's
mean,
a certain.
and if you put a battle pass in, I won't fucking buy it because I don't need it. There's nothing Overwatch can offer me that I would go like, oh fuck, better get a battle pass. Like, what? What are you gonna do? Skins? Don't give a fuck. Like, maps? If you put maps behind a battle pass, then I'm just not gonna play your fucking game. Like, I don't or characters. I'm
that
not
is the
gonna do it.
concern. Yeah, like I just desperately hope that when they add a battle pass to Overwatch, it'll still be on the same ethical level as the current one, where it's just like there's just the occasional reminder the loot boxes are around, and don't you want them? But like, I clearly can play the game just fine without them.
And also, you get I think Overwatch.
I have every
I
map
don't
and every
think-
character.
I don't think it's good that they have loot boxes because they are literally charging you money if you pay for them. They're literally charging you money to get random stuff, and that's bad.
Yep, it's gambling.
But you get
It's
so
never
many of
gonna
them
be
for
okay.
free,
It's
so it
paid
doesn't fucking
gambling
matter.
That's
in
true.
a game that has a bunch of kids in it.
I mean, look
I
at
just-
look at
which
Keith.
is a
Look at
preface-
Keith-
Distressing legal gray area.
well,
What I'm saying is,
mean,
what I said was just a preface. I don't think it's okay that they charge money for random stuff. That's bollocks, and they shouldn't be allowed to do that even in the first place. But I think Overwatch is a game that if I obviously don't have an addictive personality, and so don't have a personal problem with that. But I think it's probably the least offensive of all the games that I played with loot boxes, apart from Half Dead 2. That one was.
I don't really have much of an issue with loot boxes existing as a concept. But
the thing is,
I just have a
sorry.
problem that people find them to be like necessary. I have a
but the thing-
problem that that people need to have loot boxes where it's like that seems like a again I understand the like no, it shouldn't be okay that a company is taking advantage of people's instincts to gamble to
yeah, that's the problem.
sell a product. But at the end of the day, like I honestly I'm kind of in the opinion that like that's a you problem, dude. Like you
Nah,
need to deal
it's
with
not-
yeah. I was like
it's not
that's
the
something
same-
you need to. So everything is addictive.
Look, if
like
not everything is addictive. People have
so
different
do people spend their
susceptibilities.
lives like playing the fucking casino games in Pokemon? Like, do they get fucking sit there and they're in the stupid Poke, whatever it's called, Poke Casino, and they're just rolling the slot machines trying to get the fucking Porygon? Like, is that is that dangerous to people? Because if so, then like maybe
is the company getting money from them? Because that's the problem. Like, if you're getting money from people's, it's not even about gaining money from that. It's they purposely target the people who have addictive personalities. Who have compulsive,
though? I guess that's what I'm losing. Like, how are they targeting them? Because there's nothing. The loot boxes don't contain games.
It's when you monetize the addiction mechanic.
But there's nothing in them, and there's nothing in the loot box system that changes the way the game plays.
We know that a Skinner's box is manipulative.
Yeah, but
that it works
I guess
on
the
people,
argument I'm
and
having
that's what
is
a loot
that,
box is, just like a slot machine is.
A loot
it's
box,
randomized rewards, like what's going to happen, and that taps into a fucking part of your brain that manipulates you into doing it over and over again.
And the important thing is to know that that it's not the same for everybody. Like, we're literally not playing the same game. You and me, and other people, when we go into a game that has loot boxes, and I don't feel any need to even give a damn about that. But other people will be like, "Oh, I wonder what it's like," and I have money to spend. I'll spend it. And other people are like, "I don't have the money to spend it, but I really want to know what it's like." That's, we don't make the choice to be like that, to feel those things. So we're literally not playing the same game, even though it is the same game. We don't feel the same things when we play the game. And the thing is, Blizzard makes their game knowing full well that a lot of players are like me and like you, Andrew. I guess you never paid for any loot box, I assume.
No.
Yeah, so Blizzard.
Why? They give like hundreds of them to you for free.
Yeah, that's
so
what I'm
easily.
Saying.
There's
that game
like
is not
need.
as atrocious as it could be, and as many of the games are.
If you're paying for loot boxes in Overwatch, like, what the fuck's wrong with you, dude? Just play the fucking game. You'll get the skins.
Yeah,
I have every skin.
It's also
and I've
the
never
entire
bought a single
basis,
box.
like Diablo 3, where like you just sit there clicking on fucking goblins for 20 hours, and what can barely be constituted as gameplay. But you're just waiting for that vertical golden beam of, oh my god, a legendary drop, and then like that's what you're going for, is the randomized interval rewards that when you don't know they're going to happen, so you just keep going and going. Like, that's the design philosophy of that entire idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I'm a sort of person that
but if
plays
you
Diablo
monetize
2.
it, you're unethical.
That's why I guess I'm confused by is like, if you're not, I don't like the idea of hiding, like, specifically important things behind a loot box.
You should, like, if they're selling a skin, they should allow people to pay for that skin. It doesn't matter how much it costs, even though I still think that skins are way too expensive even as they are. But it doesn't matter how much. It's not about the money.
No.
It's about them hiding them, because they hide them.
I have always been mad ever since. Well, he means that you can't just get the skin. You have to engage with the gambling system to get it.
Yeah,
but
they do that on purpose.
Yeah, they make it the only way.
Because they know they're going to sell more, and the people who they sell more to are the people who are the most vulnerable.
Yeah, even if they know that even if you overcharge for the skin, you literally still make more profit by making people gamble for it instead of buying it for too high of a price. Exactly. But no, and that's what frustrated me, is that like you have all these fucking people that will meme on games on Twitter and like mock them, be like, oh my god, look at the total price of this game. What do they think they're doing about like a game full of like trains or whatever, or like Dead or Alive 6 or 5 or whatever, the most 6 I think is the one. And like they get mad that Dead or Alive 6 has a quote unquote total price of like $400 or something, and it's like, well, no, see, the game's free to play and you can get every single character playable for like $20 in one bundle, and that's all of the content of gameplay. There you go. That's every character. Like, the game's $20. It just has a massive store of costumes that you can buy for $2 each, or in a variety of bundles. So one, the costumes are only like $2, but they're also in a series of bundles where it's like, here's the swimsuit for every girl in one bundle, and it's like, that's $20 or whatever. And then like, and because of how Steam counts DLC, every single bundle is also stacked with the prices of all the individual purchases, even if the bundles are also bundles of other bundles. Like, sometimes the bundles are like, here's the super bundle, that's those 4 other bundles, but at a discount, and like that counts again towards the total price. So one, the total price people are like making fun of is true for no one. Like, it's only true if you stupidly click the buy all button at the bottom of Steam that's auto-generated without even looking at what you're buying, which would be insane, because it's not even, you'd be buying the same content 4 times in some cases. But also, it's like Dead or Alive did it the ethical way. There's no battle pass. There's no loot boxes. It's just, hey, you want the one where like Hayabusa's a dragon ninja? It's $2. Just buy it a la carte. You could buy the 4 costumes you like the most and be like, I'm out $8. I got the costumes I wanted, and that's it. But no, the people like that have just fucking just choking on loot boxes and battle passes and every other competitive game. They poo-poo at the fact that Dead or Alive sells $2 costumes in like this quaint retro like ethical way. And it's like, yeah, it's a little sad that back in the day in Dead or Alive 4, I could unlock 8 Hitomi costumes by just beating the campaign as her over and over again, and I did. I beat the campaign. You'd get 1 new costume every time you beat the game as a character, and some of them only had 3, but Hitomi had 8 was the highest, and there were variability from character to character based on how many they made. So ultimately, you get like 50 costumes probably. So it's like, yes, it's sad that you can't just unlock costumes by playing the game, just like how cheat codes became like microtransactions at one point. But on the other hand, Dead or Alive 6 has like hundreds of costumes. So if you see more costumes as a good thing, and you don't like loot boxes and battle passes, like that's your example. And making fun of it or complaining about it is just endorsing loot boxes basically, and being like, no, I prefer the one that manipulates me instead of being honest and just selling me them. But it's like, yeah, because one of the other things that loot boxes do is they obfuscate the price. Because like you don't know how common it is, you don't know how much it'll take to get, and the game will certainly never track how much you're putting money into it, so you'll never really have a memory of like, oh, yeah, like how did I buy loot boxes in January? Like did I buy them again in July? Like what is your total investment in loot boxes over the course of the last 4 years? The only way you'll know is checking your bank statements.
Yeah, no, you can like go on Battle.net. Battle.net tells you how much. Yeah,
but it's not like there. It's not there the way that like a store shows you.
But it's not
like
just about
if you buy the map
price.
packs for a shooter, you're like, I know exactly how much money I spent because I bought all these map packs, and they all say purchase next to them, and they have this price next to them. Which is itself, speaking of manipulative practices, that's also what fucking Microsoft did, is that they obfuscated the prices of things by making you buy fake currency in order to buy their DLC for stuff. Which on one hand meant that you could only buy it in specific intervals, which meant that you couldn't buy the exact amount you needed to buy something, so you had to buy too much currency all the time, and you always had a weird floating amount. 2, it meant that you would see a number and they could artificially make it look like a smaller number. Like 1,200 Microsoft points is $15, but it says 12, which sounds like less money. And also they further obfuscated the price by making it so that you could buy, if you bought really, really large amounts of Microsoft points, then you technically got a discount, which meant that a Microsoft point did not actually technically have a completely set value. And so these are all manipulative practices that get you to like not really think about how much money you're spending on a thing. Like this is like, that's gross in its own way, but that's like the proto version of the idea of loot boxes, of like, you just be like, you're going to play this game for years. How many loot boxes have you bought? Who knows? And who knows how much more money you spent than you would have if you just could have just bought that costume for $2 instead of doing what you did there. And then the battle pass is the next layer, because instead of randomized loot that loot boxes have, instead of having that Skinner box sort of thing, what it does is FOMO mechanics, which is that it's telling you on the screen, wow, you just unlocked this new Reinhardt skin. If only you had the battle pass. So it keeps telling you that you already have things over and over again that you don't actually have because this experience meter keeps going up. Like, wow, you're level 27 now. You could have chrome rims if you only bought the battle pass. It keeps building up more and more, so you play it for months, and now you're like level 99, and there's that entire backlog of all those things you've unlocked. So now it's really tempting to buy that battle pass right now, isn't it? Because you've been putting it off for all these months, but look at how much stuff you've unlocked. Like, look at the value of that if you buy it now. And worst of all, next week the season ends. Battle Pass 2 is coming out. All of that's going to go away, and you'll never get it again. You better buy it before it goes away. It's fucking horrible. It's a fucking psychological and manipulative nightmare. I hate it. I didn't know we could come up with something worse than loot boxes. It's the fucking worst.
It's been shown that if the developers drop that sort of predatory monetization, they don't it's not evident that they lose money. Like, they're doing all of that stuff and it's not evident. There's no evidence. What does that mean to say?
Though? Like, I'm going to be honest. I have no fucking idea how money works in game studios because much like Hollywood, it has to be a bunch of tom fucking foolery. It's
I think it has to do with
is Assassin's
how
Creed
easy-
a profitable game? How much money do you invest into making it versus how much money you make by selling it? And
It's
then
about convincing the investors. If you convince
Like-
the investors that the game is profitable, and more importantly, in the case of microtransactions, that the game is gonna be profitable, it's the same reason why they have had that we've always seen games install the Nouveau on your computer for anti-piracy measures and all that. It has all to do with the people who pay for publishing. It usually is publishers. It usually isn't the studios, and it's why you always see like the developers themselves be like, "We don't want any of this in our game," and then the publisher comes in, "Oh, yada yada, we're very sorry, you didn't listen," and then they maintain the Nouveau on their game. It's all about convincing the stockholders and people who invest in the game, and just like, yeah, I'm not really sure this game is going to sell. And the publisher goes up and says, well, but we're going to put the Nouveau in it. Maybe we're going to put microtransactions. Maybe we're going to put a season pass or two. Pre-ordered season pass with discount. And the publishers gain trust. It's always about, you always need to think about all of these big game decisions as them trying to convince the people who gave them the money to make the game. Not
which again
convincing the
doesn't
people
sound
who pay for the game.
like it doesn't sound like you've made a good game.
Oh, for sure.
Like it also doesn't. It again, it comes back to consumers. Like, why the fuck are you people buying this shit? Like, what's wrong with you? I again, like Cyberpunk is an example where I bought it because I knew it was a shit show and I wanted to experience it because I knew it wasn't going to be a shit show forever. And I, like eventually, no, they'll eventually fix it, but it may take like 2 years. And it's happening. They've been working on it every couple of months. They throw out some kind of patch to slowly build it to some stable state. Compared to like what it is, where like I summon a car and it drives under the ground towards me. Like that's not going to be in the final.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Like
I see what you mean.
There's going to be a point where Cyberpunk isn't what the fuck Cyberpunk was.
It'll stop being a travesty and it'll just be not good.
Yeah, it'll just be a bland, boring
I see what
game.
you mean.
Like it'll go from Assassin's Creed. It'll go from like, what the fuck is this circus show to Assassin's Creed level, and you're like, wow, all right. But like, why would you like? Why the fuck do you buy a AAA game if you know the expectation? You know the effort and energy is at its bare minimum, and the expectation of you is way higher than the actual care that the publisher has to giving you a product you have expectations for. Like. I've never seen a AAA game that meets expectations ever. It's never happened because people get more excited for a game than the publisher is even excited to make the fucking game. So like, why do you do that? Why would you keep buying into this? And so it goes back into like loot boxes. Why would you invest money into this thing when it doesn't give a shit? It doesn't give a shit about you. So just don't like, like again, buying skins or whatever or dances doesn't mean anything because like it's not that I can't play a game with my friends because I don't have this fucking dance or this skin. Like a map makes sense. Like if you have to buy a map, yeah, that locks you away from content.
But at the same time, you're like, I want that dance.
I don't give a fuck about the dance. The dance doesn't fucking mean anything because at the end of the day, I'm not going to be dancing while I play the game. I'm going to be fucking playing the game.
And like, dances have value in Momopagers.
Sure,
they did that on purpose, by the way. Fucking every Final Fantasy 14 race has a trash starting dance that also ends after 5 seconds. And they're like, oh, you better work your way through the handful of quests to give you a few of them, and maybe engage in our gambling area, and then also, buy the actually good dances at the store. Which I mean, at least they're purchases and not the other thing. But it is I have a more troubling relationship with. I'm more conflicted on the idea of charging for bonus content in a game that has a monthly fee. That's when I'm like, you're already charging me per month. I don't know if you should be having a premium store on top of that. WoW and Final Fantasy 14. I mean,
it's you got to make money as much as you can. $15 a month actually doesn't really amount to anything.
That's a tremendous amount of money.
Like,
I would.
no, it's
that
not.
is so much
it
money.
It really isn't. If you
that
see how
is
much
in the world before loot boxes, it was a huge amount of money for one video
that's
game.
That's $150 a year.
That's cool.
I can buy a console a year with that sort of money.
But you're forgetting the fact that this fucking game runs on a goddamn cloud server. That shit's fucking expensive, man.
I don't
It's like
care.
It's like $40,000 just to run a basic app a year.
There's free games that I. It doesn't matter if I enjoy it or not, but there's free games that they are free and also run on a cloud server.
There are perpetually muddied waters, though. Like Final Fantasy 14, for example, you can just play for free for the entire base game and all of Heavensward, which we haven't even reached yet. So like I could have literally been playing for free this entire time and never put any money into the game, but I wanted to play as a Rothgar because the Rothgar are part of they're an expansion race, so you don't have access to that expansion in the free version.
I'm not justifying them having a premium store. That's shitty. That's normal.
I'm also just commenting on how much money it is, not necessarily if it is.
That it really isn't. Like you'd
in
be
comparison
surprised
to what you get. I understand your argument, but it is a lot of money.
The infrastructure costs way too much money to run this shit. Like MMORPGs are kind of a fucking dumb idea. That's why a lot of people don't make them.
That's why they all failed.
Yes, because they're huge fucking money.
Remember the fucking mid-2000s MMO graveyard? Tabula Rasa, Matrix Online.
It's too fucking costly. It's too expensive. That's why Blizzard and Square Enix can afford to do it, because they're fucking huge companies. They make a fuck ton of money. Like Square Enix makes plenty of fucking cash. They can afford to have a shitty cloud infrastructure in the back end for this weird MMO game. Blizzard can do the same thing. They're like, WoW makes a ton of money. We can afford the cloud
they
infrastructure.
They have so much spare money, they can fucking fail at making one, take it down, spend another year making it more, and then put it up again.
I mean, but the average person, like the average game company, like, does Ubisoft make enough money to make an MMO RPG? Probably not, honestly. They probably couldn't afford to do it. Like, that's a lot of money, and I doubt they're going to be able to get the capital to do it. They can. There's only one reason you'd pump out that many fucking games that quickly, that poor quality, because you need some fucking cash, and you're not making enough of it. Like, there's no reason to keep making that many Assassin's Creed games the speed that they do it, unless you're not making enough money. Like, Square Enix will take a while between their games, and that they also have like a lot of franchises going on at a single time, but they take a good amount of time between like Final Fantasy 10 and the next Final Fantasy isn't happening in 2 years. Like, it's the last time they did that was 13, and that was a shit show.
That's why they respond by losing their shit and trying to make a multimedia franchise out of every new Final Fantasy. Like, and there's an anime, and there's a movie, and there's a phone game, and so on, because they're desperately trying to make as much money as they can from the property when it does happen.
Yeah, but
and
like
all of the side stuff is worse somehow.
There's I don't know. There's like a weird. I think there's a weird expectation. Like, games cost a lot of money to make. They cost a lot of money to maintain. They cost a lot of money to update, and they cost a lot of money just to play. Like, it even costs a consumer a lot of money to play the stupid fucking game. And like, it's a money sink hobby. It's a money sink hobby, a money sink business, and it's a money sink everything. Everything is just a bad idea with gaming. But it's fun. And like, you have to weigh that value. You have to say, like, is it worth investing all this money? Is it worth the really shitty, all of this really shitty shit that goes involved with games, just so we could maybe have an Undertale once? Like, you have to kind of like, or like, is Stardew Valley worth the fact that this entire industry could go into the sun and no one would be sad about it? Like,
it's worse than that. Undertale happens despite all this crap that we're talking about. Because what all this crap works for is that games like Undertale and indie games that are really, well, Undertale is not necessarily very revolutionary. It does have some new ideas and all that, but
I think the only real benefit that a lot of there's two benefits that the indie scene has from AAA. One is just that AAA makes engines and things that end up being usable by indie in some cases, and then there's the brain drain, which is just people fleeing AAA development and becoming indie developers.
Yeah, but it's so difficult being an indie developer, though. Like, it's not.
But they don't hate themselves.
Well, the thing is, like, it's kind of, it's about how safe it is at the end of the day. Gaming, obviously I don't speak from experience, but people who work in the gaming industry, like especially in terms of programmers, they just, they work in games for a while and then, okay, I'm going to program some washing machines or something instead because it's just so much more money and more stable, and I don't need to crunch, and I don't need to deal with abusive bosses who are abusive and pieces of crap in Activision and
yeah, boring. I mean,
Ubisoft.
Boring jobs are better jobs.
Yeah, but the gaming industry also abuses that, the fact that people like working, and they're like, oh, you like working in games, I'm just going to pay you less.
I mean, yeah. I don't know. It's a really complicated
We're a
mess.
family.
There's multiple ways to solve for this. Obviously, you can just
unionize for one,
well,
and then
unionizing kind of only works depending on where that game company's located at, and depending
that's
on
also true. Yeah,
the rules that country has regarding unions and what value that they have. Like I can imagine working in Ubisoft France is probably a lot better than working in Ubisoft America, because France has a lot better union rules, and US is like, unions are basically communism, and communism is basically akin to like traitorous against the United States. So like,
does California have right to work rules?
Right? What? What do you mean right to?
So yeah, there's as far as I know in the US, there's these group of laws or something.
It's like one of those infuriatingly named things that basically means the opposite of what it says it means.
Yeah, you mean that they can fire you without any cause?
No, it has to do with I think basically it's if you belong to a union, or rather, whether or not you belong to a union. This is an oversimplification, but whether or not you belong to a union doesn't matter for if you get the benefits that the union negotiates with the bosses. So basically, if you belong to the union and the union says that their members now earn $5 more an hour, then if you get those 5 hours or $5 an hour, but people who don't belong to that union and also work in for the same company also get those $5. And the way they do those laws, they use those laws to basically disincentivize people from paying their union dues and belonging to unions. And
as far as I'm aware, California does. If a union argues for something, everyone gets it.
So that's the same problem. Yeah.
So
because it's a system that was designed to defund unions.
To cut them.
But it's one of those many things where they try to make something sound like it's good for workers, and it's actually making things way worse.
But I mean, it's
like the recent Grubhub thing.
You have to, the
and Lyft
Uber,
and everything,
Uber and all that stuff. The idea is that you need to, well, and again, there's this comes back to as much as I think it's scummy, there is a level of blame. You have to reasonably leave a level of blame on the consumer. You have to like put the bag of shit at their front porch and go, look, you keep stepping this every day, and you could avoid it at any point. Like, I know it's not going to be fun. I know it's going to suck, and maybe it could result in a bad situation. You may slip down the stairs and fall and break your neck, but but alternatively, you're just stepping in shit every day. And like, you're doing that on purpose, and you're doing that on purpose. And there is an option.
Well, do they know
like
that they're doing it?
Yes.
There's so much disinformation.
No one doesn't know unions exist. That's not a thing.
But what does it mean to be unionized?
It means that you all together as a union, as a unified body of people called a union, you walk up to an employer and go, look, bud, you either fucking do this or you don't have fucking employees, which means you don't make money. And like,
that's what I'm saying. Then they say, oh, but I like my boss. I don't need to be in a union because my boss is nice. Or they say, I don't want to pay my dues because I have child support to pay.
It doesn't matter. Okay, well, first of all, that's not how that works.
What I mean, it's expensive for one to belong to a union, or it is more expensive in the short term than not belonging. But the point is, there's so much misinformation, so much money dumped into making sure that people don't believe in the effectiveness, or even it's not even believing in the effectiveness of unions. It's understanding what the unions are for. Like, even the way you put it, while it is true that you work as a union or as a unit when you're in negotiations with the people who employ you. But what exactly does that mean? You're putting it in a way that it's kind of difficult for just to immediately understand how it works, and it's normal.
A union exists to give you better everything in your job. Better
As
wages,
far as I can tell,
better time off, better benefits, better fucking management, better employment status. Everything only gets better when you have a union backing you up. Because and the best example of this in the fucking United States is the goddamn police union. How fucking hard is it to get these goddamn motherfuckers fired? Look at it every fucking day. And you go like, wow, how come we can't literally stop people with fucking guns from killing other people? Well, there's a fucking union and they're really strong. That could be you. That could literally be you in your fucking job with a gun, and they can't fire you because you have a fucking union behind you. Unionize. Like
what I'm saying is there's so much propaganda against unions that when you say what you said, and I agree with you, and says that the unions exist to make you as a worker have more rights and have a better quality of life. If somebody tells me, yeah, I don't believe you when I say this, and when you say this, like, they're saying that not because it came out of their head that they're saying this. They say this because they live in a society that trained them to be suspicious of any of this conversation that we're having right now. You know what I mean?
You live in an Amish culture where you do not have access to the internet, you have no excuse for this. Go on the fucking internet, go to Google and type in union. And you're going to find a lot of information about unions, both bad and good.
It's not
and you
as
can
simple
definitely
as that. You know it.
Well, he's making the everybody should be able to repair their toasters argument from like 10 episodes ago.
You need to be able to research on your own accord. You need to be able to look at things and not believe everything at face value.
Can I stop for a second? Because I just to clarify this. So as far as I can tell, California is not a right-to-work state. In fact,
thank you.
If you look at the map for right-to-work states, it's very noticeably...
South.
It's very noticeably the Republican states. So it's the middle of the country and the south of the country, whereas the top right and the West Coast are all blue because they just use the same color scheme as they use for Republican and Democrat that they use for right to work and not right to work, and it looks about the same. So yeah, the West Coast is not right to work. The entire Northeast is not right to work, and there's just kind of like a scattering in the middle here and there of not right to work. But yeah, very noticeably, like Texas, Florida, and so on, like that's all right to work. And if you look at a separate map that shows unionization rates, there's a direct correlation between the ones that are right to work all having very, very low unionization rates. California has one of the higher rates, which is still only 16%. Unionization is incredibly low just in general. The highest unionized state in the entire union is Hawaii, which in 2019 was 23.5%.
I mean, probably, I would wonder how many of that is because people, that are natives living there are like, wait a second, this is my fucking house.
What I'm saying, Andrew, is that this isn't about individual choice as much as it is about systemic issues, not just in terms of education and propaganda, but also how the system itself of people putting people so much on the edge that they can't afford $200 a month out of their.
It's not $200 a month.
Well, it depends on what
union dues are small amounts over long periods of time. You don't just upfront cost like a huge fucking chunk of your bill or your paycheck. The idea is that in a year you'd pay $700. And like, sure, the argument is like, right. Or you could say that you could have $700 at the end of the year to buy an Xbox, but no, you won't, because you're a fucking idiot and you're going to use all of it to pay for your stupid fucking rent, which is so fucking high because the only thing that doesn't change is your fucking wage. Like, this is just basic fucking math. Cool, you could go buy an Xbox if only you didn't have to live. Like, if only you didn't have to, then you could afford the Xbox. But like, or you could go in a union and then you can both afford to live and you can get an Xbox. You could literally do both. It's crazy. It's almost like more money means you could have more things. Like,
I'm not arguing against the legitimacy of what you're saying. I'm just saying that people never get to that stage of thinking like that.
Just research. Just fucking go online. Look this shit up. Like, just look at how much a union costs. Do the math. You could literally sit down with a fucking calculator and just do the math at how much money you would spend versus how much money you would earn based on the potential increase. But like, take another union. Go look at like, I don't know, an electrician's union and see how much money how much their wages increase per year based on the amount of like, how big the union is or whatever, how much their dues are versus how much money they get increased. Like, you live in a world where there's so much fucking available information. It's like the idea that you would go, well, Walmart told me that it was bad to do unions. It's like, what the fuck? What do you mean Walmart told you it's bad? Walmart also fucking doesn't give a shit if you died tomorrow.
But they like their boss.
No one likes their boss. It's a fucking lie. I don't. No. I had a really nice
certainly
boss.
Not people who work at Walmart.
I don't care about him more beyond the fact that he didn't fucking punish me.
I'm just coming up as examples because there are so many systemic pressures for people.
Your boss is making more money than you, and he's doing so because you don't unionize.
The average union dues appears to be $400 per year.
Thank you.
Holy shit, $400 a year?
Yeah,
that's year,
average, though.
A fucking year. That is literally less than most car payments are.
It was also summarized as being about 2 hours of wage per month.
What? Per month, right?
2 hours. This is what I mean. This is like, at some point you have to put the bag of shit on someone's front door and go, look, this is what you're stepping in every day. Stop fucking doing it. Like,
the bag of shit is on the people who train everybody to be like this. It's not the American people aren't naturally anti-union. It's the freaking bosses in the lobbies. You know that. It's not the American people are not born anti-union. They don't like, oh, that's in my blood. I can't. You know what I mean?
The only time I've ever heard
cult.
The only time I've ever heard about anti-union propaganda is at a job that didn't want me to unionize.
I've basically never heard anyone advocate for unions, even though I live in California. Everybody is pretty specifically anti-union because it's just thought of as being the right way to do.
And it's not just.
It's like with road workers. Like unions are literally the stereotypical union worker is somebody who just doesn't do their job, actively makes the workplace worse, but can't get fired for it. Like that's the narrative.
Yeah, because it's not just in personal life; it's also in movies and TV series and just offhand comments here and there. Like I absorb the as a personal Portuguese person who doesn't watch movies a lot and doesn't watch much television. I see the union propaganda from the US.
Yeah, it's and people just repeat it uncritically, but the whole time I'm nope, I remember history class. I remember when we talked about the company store and shit like that, which is why I was like, holy shit, they're doing it when Outer Worlds did it. I'm like, oh, fuck. Yeah. We're going back. But a lot of people forget all that history lesson, and then they're like, yeah, unions are bad, even though it's the only reason why our jobs are bearable today.
So many,
unions are the only reason you have that fucking weekend that you beg you had more of.
Yes,
weekends. I don't know why you don't get more weekends, you fucking idiot. Maybe it's because you don't have unions. Like, again, it's not like this isn't hidden information. This isn't like locked in some fucking Disney vault that only shows up every 20 fucking years to go, hey, unions existed. And then it goes away and you're like, oh, I guess a whole generation will never know about unions. It's in your fucking goddamn history book. It's in your fucking internet. Just look it up.
Well, like, it might not be in everybody's history book.
This is like the same. And again, it doesn't take one person knowing about unions doesn't mean anything. But again, you can also communicate to your fellow workers and go, hey, dude, what if we could all buy a fucking new Xbox next year because we all made a union and fucked over the goddamn higher ups at this company? Like, doesn't that sound cool? Doesn't it sound fun to like turn around and fuck the shit out of the people that like manage you? You could turn around like the people that you've never met that are sitting there with like more money than you could ever have. You could turn around and go, fuck those guys. And you could take Xboxes from them personally. Go do that. Go to your job right now and steal Xboxes from your fucking employer by stealing money from them. Like,
just unionize. It's better.
It's like it. You could.
I guess I'm editing this podcast.
I'm not saying steal an actual Xbox. I'm saying like
you can get them. You just advocate murder and theft on this podcast every now and then.
I'm not saying murder. I'm not saying actual stealing. I'm saying go. You make a union. You take money. You take more money out of the company, which means there's less money they can pay in bonuses and shit to higher up management. That's the whole point of unions. The idea is that it keeps the money balanced within a company. It means that people can't have huge wealth disparities because people have to be paid in good amounts all across the board of your company. There can't be people who just get low wages. There are people who have to either earn a living wage or a little bit more than a living wage. But you can't have gratuitous fucking wages in a unionized setting. It just doesn't work that way. Like, that's the fucking thing. Like,
yeah.
We do
And the
desperately
reason I'm
need
saying-
we do desperately
Yeah.
need like scaling wages. Like
And the
if your
joke I'm saying-
company
and-
is wildly successful, there should definitely be rules about what you have to pay your employees instead of just continually pocketing it.
Yes,
Because having it just
I mean,
not trickle down at all is like what the fuck? What the actual fuck? Like the prestige of working at like one of the most successful companies in the world. It's like, yeah, well, they're successful because they don't fucking pay you, so fuck you. You might as well have worked
There's-
anywhere else.
And
You're
the
right
reason,
in saying that.
The
but
reason I'm making a
US
joke
has-
about the Xbox is because that was an old advertisement. Was that like don't join a union, save your money, buy an Xbox. That was like
Yeah.
that was
That
a
was
joke. That's why
Best
I'm
Buy?
saying like
Which
steal
one
the
was it?
Xbox. That was from United Airlines. They they said don't join the airline union. You can save $700 and that's enough to buy a video game console. And so that's that's why I was saying the joke of like just go steal
Also,
the
it's
fucking
not-
Xbox.
You
Just
could you could
can get that
understand
money.
him.
Sorry.
Huh?
You responded to what he was saying, and I was like, "What? You can understand what he was saying?"
Oh yeah, I was. Oh,
No,
yeah.
look, every time you guys talk at the same time, Colonel turns into like
Oh, sorry.
cell phone interference noises.
Oh.
I can't
Not
hear
for
a
me.
single word he's saying. I don't know what the fuck is wrong with Discord.
Do you update Discord?
I don't know.
Does it even update? I've never seen it update. It just does its thing.
Well,
No,
Keith
what-
has
what
a,
I was
Keith has
saying-
a habit of not updating anything.
I mean, you can't
What I
tell
was gonna
Discord
say
not to
is-
update.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
if
that's
you
true.
don't close it, it never updates.
I restart my computer
does
and
it?
stuff.
Okay.
So what I was gonna say regarding what Keith said is that, like, specifically talking about the U.S., you guys have such tremendous problems in regards to yes, you need better. Well, you need to fix the wealth disparity between the lowest paid and the highest paid in a company, but you can't even pass the freaking $15 an hour bill.
Yeah, no, we're fucked.
And that's like the whole thing. I've been following that scenario. The whole thing is just how many, like, you need to. What Andrew said, talking to each other. That's
It's up
very
there with
important,
the
I think.
anti-union settlement. Like everybody has been conditioned to argue against their best interests.
Yes.
the idea that everyone could earn $15 an hour is unthinkable because it would put out so many businesses out of business, and then you
It
have to go.
wouldn't.
But
It wouldn't.
well,
It's demonstrably
but the
proven that it will.
And sorry, go.
No, it's just so I was just retracting. Like, it won't put business out of business. It's like a 1 to 5% impact in the current, which is a terrible economy right now. In the current economy of the United States, there are studies made about this stuff as far back as I think the 70s or no, it wasn't the 70s. When was the last like big jump like that? There's like
What,
this is so well studied
between minimum wage.
Yeah, minimum wage. There was like if you look at the correlation between minimum wage with the inflation.
Yeah, it's around the 70s.
Yeah, I think it was the 70s. Yeah, there's studies that go as far back as that because precisely it's an issue that people are rightly worried about. You know, you don't want business to go out of business, but like this is so well understood by economists all over the world, including in the US. They're just lying. They go to television and they say all these things that you are saying, but obviously I'm not saying you're defending them right now. I'm just saying they go onto television and say this, and they just bold-faced lie. They masquerade as having an opinion that this is going to bring businesses down. It's not an opinion. It's like there's no evidence whatsoever. There's evidence to the contrary that there's obviously going to be businesses that can't pay the current employees that they have. And so, yes, there are jobs that are going to be lost. But in the long run, not only is more wealth going to be created, there are going to be more jobs because of it. Because the thing with the minimum wage stuff is that it brings the floor up to a level where it creates more business for the vast majority of companies, because you need to think of like a jeweler, for example, is not going to get any benefit from
It improves the economy because
well-
people actually have money to spend.
It's
Like
also
there's
it's
a
also
noticeable
problem-
uptick for the economy every time minimum wage goes up. Like there's no argument
Yes.
here.
More jobs are
Yeah.
created, because the thing is, just to finish my point, a jeweler doesn't see any benefit or downside of a minimum wage increase ever, because it's a luxury thing. They pay more than minimum wage to their people, and like the only downside that they would have is if the people mining their jewels and their things back in Africa or whatever, if they were paid properly, then they would have a downside. But that's not what we're talking about here. The luxury items don't are not affected. It's the small businesses, and not just the small business, but more importantly, the small businesses that see the biggest impact. Because people all of a sudden, and not necessarily all of a sudden, but over time, they get more income. And instead of being strapped and be like, oh, I'll put off going to the dentist for another year, or I'll not get gas for the car, or go to the shop to fix whatever I need in the car and all that sort of stuff. People will have more money to spend, and it's just better for the economy, not just in terms of wealth, but also in terms of jobs. And it's like this happens time and again. And you look at Europe, and you look at precisely how healthy small businesses are in European countries, and you see that the countries with lower minimum wages have unhealthier small businesses than countries with better minimum wages.
Asian cultures have the exact same thing.
Exactly.
Japan is fuck ton full of small businesses. Every corner is filled with a fucking small business, and it's most because everyone makes enough money to afford to do those things. They can go out to eat, they can go shopping and buy stuff. Like, yeah, that's the thing, is if people have money, they spend the money. Like, people
Yeah.
But we
It
have
also doesn't make
we have our essential workers paradox, where we shame people for working at any of these things, and it's like, well, that's not supposed to be a long-term job. You're supposed to like only do that as a kid to learn for a bit, then move on. But simultaneously, we call these the essential workers, and they don't get to like take breaks during COVID, and they have to like keep their jobs and keep all those things functioning, because like fucking society will shut down if those things aren't happening. So we're completely dependent on these people that we basically actively abuse.
Yep.
yeah, you just move the baton from one, or you just keep moving the baton for like what is considered less than human. And so like, you need more jobs, you just need to work more jobs to survive, that's your fault. And it's like, well, no, you kept raising the prices for everything else but my wage, so now I can't afford to do it but have multiple jobs. It's like, yeah, but that sounds like your problem. It's like
It's like the de facto mandatory opposite side of the spectrum of the American dream. Like, you're going to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and be a billionaire one day, and so on and so forth.
but
So
the
it leads to
fucking
that, like,
people who said that never did that.
no. So it leads to the Fry meme of like, y'all, those poor people better watch out. Like, well, you're not rich, Fry. Yeah, but one day I might be, and then people like me better watch out. It's like everyone thinks they're going to be rich one day, and that they're sold this idea that can work that way, just like how they're sold the idea that college helps most people. But in order to fuel that narrative, we have to just shit on everybody that works bottom jobs. Anyone that's near the bottom side of that spectrum that isn't the desirable ones, they can't make real wages, and they can't feed their families, and it can't be a place that somebody could comfortably stay, because it has to fuel the narrative that there's this spectrum from shitty, undeserving jobs and beautiful top-level jobs that totally matter, even though the highest paying jobs are pretty consistently the least necessary for society, and usually they're actively exploiting something or cheating the system to even make that much money, and they're just kind of sitting on top of a company that does the real work for them.
That's the real irony, is that
Dragons on hordes.
people who are stereotypically the ones working for unions are the ones that are not doing anything by the roadside, but the freaking people who are paying them are not doing anything because they're the company owners that just mooch off of their workers, and like nobody questions it. It's like every time somebody says, oh, I don't want those government bureaucrats controlling my thing, but they will say nothing about the Jeff Bezos of the world controlling their thing. They're completely unaccountable, unelected, super rich people that control so much. They have so much power because, at the end of the day, vote with your wallet is still a thing. It works under capitalism, and that's just how it works at the end of the day. And their vote is just a lot more powerful than yours because...
You know who invented vote with your wallet? Fucking capitalists did.
Yeah. But it's a market dynamic.
Shitty fucking phrase, and it means nothing and doesn't have any weight. It's like the shittiest fucking like...
It does mean
cancel
when
culture. It's like, oh yeah, that's really working out. Swell. Good job there, guys.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm using it from an analytical perspective. The whole just mantra of it being
It's liberal civility.
Yeah. But I'm because there is a certain value to your money and to the way you choose to spend it. And
yeah, but it also
value,
encourages you to protest things in entirely passive ways that don't do
That's
anything.
right.
Usually.
Yeah, like
That's
don't
absolutely right.
don't vote with your wallet. Vote like in person. Like go do that in person, please. Like
No, under COVID, you should do the
Those are not-
mail-in ballots.
But no, but that's the thing. Is like
that
people
metaphor
just
snapped.
The idea is that like you have this control with your money, which decides things, but you don't.
But
you absolutely have no control because what are you going to do?
Like, you're
gonna
drowning in cash. Don't drown. Use a snorkel.
It's like,
you broke the metaphor on your knee by just ending the sentence in the literal version of what the words meant.
I'm saying like no, but like really, if you want to change things, you have to go fucking actually vote. You don't do it with your money. You have to physically yourself go change, like pick a different person.
Yeah, no,
because,
vote with your money. No, vote with your money was never supposed to be applicable to things where you can actually vote.
Yes,
no, but
that was talking about commerce. And
I'm
your
saying
opinions about
with commerce,
like, for example,
you can't do that because like it's because
because clearly everyone votes so poorly that here we are with loot boxes and battle passes.
Yes. Also, the fact that like some products
aren't
cross-applicable. Like almost all products, well, depending on what field you're in. So like say grocery. If you don't like one thing, too fucking bad. There's only like 5 companies to pick from. They just make a shit ton of products with different subsidiary companies. So you can't I'm not going to buy Kellogg's products. I'm going to go buy
like how mattresses are just the same products being rebranded over and over again by the same company competing with themselves. You're gonna vote
with your wallet? This shit's all monopolies all the way down. It's like you get the fuck out of here. You gotta vote someone in who's gonna break that shit up, and then you can vote with your wallet. Like no, I can't. How do you vote for your wallet with internet provider? You get 2 options, and
the other option's actually just the same company.
Yeah, the other option is just a company renting the lines from that company you don't want to support. Fucking good job there,
My problem with vote with your wallet is that it makes you blind, and I was using it in a specific context, not in the commonly used context. Is that it makes you blind to the wallet size disparity between the company owners and the people who actually make decisions in the companies that you're trying to vote for or against, and your wallet. Like your vote is just it's just small. It's nothing. It's the difference between.
I don't trust the fact that people who make like $70 an hour get to determine if someone deserves $15 an hour or not. I'm not really thinking that you're in the field of
that's not even that much
of relatability.
Yeah, but that's not related to vote with your wallet.
No, I'm just saying when it comes to money, like the whole thing about trying to get the most out of your dollar to try to use your status as an economic or as a consumer to change things is like but there are people who are like so beyond relatable to you that are deciding how much money you'll have at the end of the day. And it's like, fuck. All right, great. Awesome. This is like, so like, it doesn't,
the people that determine the policy of every state are largely the type of,
they're like the
mom from Arrested Development that are like, what? It's just a banana. What could it cost? $15? Like they have no idea what reality is.
That was like do you remember, probably, no, do you remember? No, you don't. Back in the day, one of the big questions that they used to ask presidents was how much milk and bread cost. And they did that because that was supposed to be a litmus test for if you were a fucking actual human being or not. Because if you show up and you're like, I don't know, bread's like $15, right? You'd be like, who the fuck let this guy in here? Get the fuck out of here. This guy's like crazy. He doesn't even know how much fucking bread costs. He can't lead a country. Like, because you don't actually have connection to the people that you're supposed to be representing. And that was like the whole point. And we just stopped doing that because at some point we just stopped giving a shit. We just like, it doesn't fucking matter. Everyone's bad. Might as well just not give a shit.
I'm so bad that even I don't know how much bread costs.
Depends on where you go. So bread is usually
obviously
around,
there's a ton of prices, but it's just the fact that I was like, even when I was living in poverty, and I was like, but like fake poverty, like my money, like I was poverty levels of money, like the numbers were poverty, but my life was it was fine. I was fine. I was just living in a shitty little room and I was doing my weird jobs, but I wasn't like, what am I going to do to survive the month or anything? But numerically, I was in poverty, and still it was just like, food is just a fact of life. So when I go grocery shopping to this day, and it's always been this way, I just buy what I need to buy. And then I'm like, oh, that's what the total is, huh? And then that's it. Like I don't even check the prices of things because it's just like that's what I gotta get. That's what we do.
I know the price of everything I buy. Bread is $1 is like around $1.15 to $1.23 depending on your product. Eggs is about.
I assume it's a loaf.
That's a loaf, yeah, a loaf of bread. So that's about. I think it's about like 24 slices of bread.
That's surprisingly cheap.
That's the same price as here in Portugal.
Yeah, eggs are about $1.15, and that's for 2, 4, 6, 8 of them.
I would honestly I would have guessed like $3 or $4 for both of these.
I'm sorry, it might be 12. Might be no, I think it's 8. Maybe.
I thought
For me, my only goal with buying groceries is that I will consume all of them.
But the thing
if I don't
like,
fuck up and waste anything, then I'm like, it's fine. I'm doing fine.
Well, and I mean, but the thing is like
my way.
But when I buy stuff, like especially food is my fucking biggest. I hate spending money on food. It's such a fucking waste of money. It's an absolute waste.
It's like all I do is work and food is my.
But that's
money.
the thing. It's like, but food doesn't do anything. And you consume it and it keeps you alive, I guess. But at the end of the day, you just shit it out. What a fucking absolute waste. I don't want to do that. I don't want to. Like, I'm not going to spend. That's why you either
buy the crappiest food, cheapest, or the most chocolatey one.
I just buy. I buy
these are
food
both bad advice. Don't listen to Colonel.
That's what I do.
He's literally worse than Andrew somehow.
I buy food that is of. So here's a non-shitty advice. Unless it's something very, very specific to you, like something that you cannot live without the taste of, always try to buy the store brand of a product. Because
of course.
All they do is they rip open someone else's bag and pour it into their own fucking box. And they put a fucking it's a much cheaper price tag because they get a huge 100% profit from it all. So always go for like bread, eggs, milk. Well, not milk, I guess, because I don't think milk they do locally. But like bread and eggs, and sometimes most local
milk.
All of our milk's pasteurized.
Yeah, all of our milk's pasteurized. So like a lot of it comes from the same state.
Well, it should be, but
it's not. It's not from the. But it's not from like Rayleigh's doesn't make their own milk.
Yeah, I understand.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, but Rayleigh's makes their own bread. They make their own bread. They make their own like they have their own the tomato sauce, mac and cheese, frozen pizzas. They have a ton of fucking their own label shit. Buy that stuff because it's genuinely cheap, and it doesn't matter because it's food. So it doesn't. It tastes fine. It tastes like normal food. It just doesn't have the whatever weird preservative they put in Kraft macaroni and cheese that makes the cheese that's not even real cheese taste like something that's not real cheese.
This is coming from Andrew. All wine tastes like grapes, Wilson.
It
all
does. All wine tastes like grapes. It's all shitty grapes.
What is this? I will fly over to Canada and you will fly to Canada
as well.
I
don't know where he finds the shitty grapes.
It's all bad grapes.
I will teach you what good wine is. We just need to move to Canada.
I hate wine, but I've just never found grapes that tasted like anything like wine.
They don't. Wine doesn't taste like grapes. What?
Tastes like fucking sour grapes. I don't know how you don't taste that.
Oh, sour grapes.
Well, yeah. What other kind of grapes would it taste like?
You don't eat sweet grapes, like normal grapes.
No, I prefer. Well, I guess they're technically purple, but the dark red grapes. The ones that are a lot
but
more,
they can be sweet. Whatever.
Yeah,
color,
I don't like sweet. I don't like sweet grapes or apples.
Green grapes.
I prefer more bitter. Bitter
any
fruit.
grapes. Yeah, I see what you mean. Huh.
So that's,
okay,
that's why I don't like
then.
it. Yeah, all wine tastes like sour grapes, and I don't like it. I don't want anything to do with it. It's kind of like how applesauce. I don't really like applesauce because it all tastes like sour apple, and I hate it. I don't fucking want that. I want boring, bland tasting fruit because
I like cinnamon applesauce.
The one I'm eating right now is blueberry applesauce, and it's more blueberry than apple, so it works out.
Those blueberry sauce.
Yeah, it's basically blueberry sauce, but they call it blueberry applesauce. I'm like, all right, so I guess you put an apple in there, and that was enough. Like, but that's I like. But it's no, but food should be food. You should not be spending more money on food than you do on anything else. Like, food should just be a normal amount of money spent. Like you.
What does that mean?
So if you wouldn't, the amount you spend on your hobbies and your food,
you know, normal. This is normal. This is a block. I just need a block.
So when I buy food, like for a month, I spend $150 on food.
You know that is
for a month.
Fucking Stephanie always quotes this as like, yeah, I just had like a block of cheese before the date. You know, like a block. It's like what do you mean a block? What does a block mean? You know, like a block. like just this bizarre, this horrifying metric of like he describes the amount of cheese he ate before his date as a block, and you're like, what the fuck? And he just keeps repeating himself. Normal amount of cheese.
I don't think a block of cheese is normal. I think they're talking about...
No, it's not. A block is so
enormous.
much,
A block of cheese is
fucking
enormous.
cheese.
That's way too much cheese.
Yeah.
You usually use like six grates of a block of cheese for like a burrito, and that's still not even like a dent in your cheese block.
Yeah, it's very
so
little.
if you're eating a whole cheese block, that's a little worrying.
Like a block.
Yeah. But no, like food should not be, you should not be spending a lot of money on food unless you're doing something wrong. Like food is absolutely a cheap thing that you could, like, I get by with less than $200 a month on food. And
Holy shit.
It depends.
No, it's not holy shit. I eat a sandwich every day for lunch. I have like for snacks I have like grapes.
It's worth bringing up in this conversation that you have like food issues though.
Yeah, but I've put on since I've put on like
you're
20
chronically
pounds
underweight
recently.
and you hate eating and so on.
I know, but I'm up to 130 pounds now. I've increased the amount of food that I've eaten.
That's progress. I'm not two of you anymore.
Yeah, and I'm still paying less than $200 a month on groceries, and it's like you just have to.
But you're like coming from there though. Like it's a different perspective. A lot of people like food, Andrew.
That's upsetting.
like,
That's a
yay.
waste. Like you should find.
I don't know about.
You should do
I'll
like a hobby.
I'll have a day where I'm looking forward to ordering like the sweet and sour fish fillet, and I'm like, oh, that'll just capstone this day. I'm like, please just get that over here.
Food
fucking
is
like sweet and sour, sort of like it's almost like deep fried like fish fingers or something from like a Chinese place. I'm like, yes, fucking give me those with some pot stickers.
Food's an obstacle. It's just a hurdle I have to overcome in order
Taiwanese
to continue moving on. Like
I think it was the Taiwan milk tea or something. Shit.
Food's too fucking expensive half the time. It's not worth that much, man. Just food.
I don't
Shit.
know.
I mean, especially with the last year we've had, it's like one of the only things that's good anymore.
I mean,
you have to live at some point.
Just eat those fries and the chocolate.
But that's the thing is like I don't.
That's what I do.
What like you can if you're willing to put the time in, you can just like I make everything at home. That's the way I keep it cheap. I just don't order food out because what's the fucking I'm not gonna
tune into cooking
about,
with Andrew for context.
You could, but most of the time it's bad. It's always me like failing in some capacity.
Well,
today I am carrying one
cup
cup of noodles.
I recently bought like a cast iron skillet so I could actually start making some good stuff, and I fucked that up, and now it rusted. So I have to re-season it. And
this fucking cast iron skillet obsession that happened like over the last few years.
What?
This has to be like when the bacon lobby created a demand for bacon out of scratch, right? Like the fucking cast iron skillet thing just fucking took off. Everyone's obsessing over cast iron skillets all the time for like the last 2 years. It's like a fucking meme at this point. Like somebody just fucking taste maked the world. Like when like that fucking like whenever deodorant was introduced to society.
They've been around for like ever, right?
Yeah, but suddenly like over the last like 2 years, everyone's getting cast iron skillet and talking about seasoning them stuff, and then you use fucking soap to fucking clean something. Like I don't know, isn't that too invasive? Doesn't it ruin the season and stuff like that? Of like anything you like, people are fucking
no. You need to wash
people
it with
have like
soap.
lost their minds lately.
Jesus Christ, it's a cast iron.
I know that because it infected
like
this household too. My brother was suddenly like, "Oh my god, cast irons!" It's like, why is everybody suddenly freaking out about cast iron sets?
The reason I got a cast iron is because it has really good long term value. So a cast iron lasts.
I'm convinced y'all just fucking watch the same YouTube video.
No, I don't watch cooking videos because it's a waste
brain
of my time.
infected you.
It's food. I don't care about it. I just like it because
I only watch Ann Reardon.
I have a lot of, or I had a lot of like nonstick pans, but the problem I noticed with nonstick is I keep going through them quickly because they just wear out. Just by washing and stuff. And so a cast iron is nice because it just stays there for fucking ever. It never goes away. And so I'm just at the point where like, look, I just need some kind of iron that doesn't go. I just want to make like eggs without having to like clean.
Have you ever seen an aged cast iron pan?
Yeah, my grandparents have one.
Those things are like super mutants.
Well, if you're not properly caring for it, probably, yeah.
Yeah,
you should, like you should be reseasoning them like every couple of years. Like you don't just accumulate the
I know.
flavor. Like
I
people
never-
will tell you that you're supposed to just let the flavor pack on like some kind
No.
of disgusting
Unless
mound
you
of
only use it
flavor.
for one food, and even
Yeah.
then it's questionable.
No. You should be reseasoning it every couple of years and just like getting
Yeah.
it completely cleaned off and brand new again. And that like the point is like it adds a little like ooh spice to your whatever you're making, but it's not supposed to be
you're
like
supposed to clean it with this annoying metal chainmail thing.
well okay, that depends on how fucking weird you are. You can clean it with like the chainmail thing. You
We
can
have a
also clean it
whole
with
set
wire
of knives
brush.
and a whole set of pans that Stephanie and I never touch because there's too many rules about how to use them, and we're just going to make people angry.
Cast iron rusts very quickly. It will do so if you do not clean it the proper way. It will immediately rust, and you have to reseason it, and it sucks because reseasoning takes way too much fucking time.
Or specifically, there was the enthusiast knife set, and then there was the normies knife set that everyone was supposed to use. Don't touch my super knives and whatever. But those ones also still had too many rules. So Stephanie just ordered another knife set online for like $10, and we're both just using those from her drawer. So it's just like this pink knife because it's like we don't have to obsess over people being like really anal retentive about how to care for their special knives. And it's like, this is too much. This is too much fucking preamble. People just want to be able to cook quickly.
There's
I
only
just
one
use the
rule
same
about
knife for
knives,
everything,
and you don't put them in a
except for
washing
cutting
machine.
bread. Oh, interesting.
It dulls them. Putting knives in a washing machine dulls the knives, so you have to sharpen them more frequently. But otherwise, like you just wash a knife like normal, put some soap on it, scrub it, done. Like it's a knife. What the fuck do you want it to do? It's not going to go to space. It doesn't need
It's
to be,
some of the
like,
oldest technology we've had.
Yeah, you don't need to like take care of it like it's a newborn infant. It's not going to like crumple on itself because you didn't spray it with some lemon salt and then pray to it.
Both sets of knives are like too fancy for a knife block, so they have like special things that they're held in. I'm like,
Too fancy
so
for a knife
fucking
block.
annoying.
What is a knife block gonna do? It's gonna like get wood on it. What the fuck? Get out of here.
One of them looks like
Yeah,
a DS screen, like where it's like pointed up but then slightly back, so it's at a slant and it's magnetic. So they're all like just laying against it. But like I bumped one of them once and it like fell the 1 inch down to the counter and just fucking gouged into the counter. Now there's just a fucking gouge there that I'll just never point out to anybody. Like no one needs to know. But it's like that's the fucking fancy magnetic thing. It's like one bump and it fucking stabs into the fucking table that it's on because you're not just fucking putting it somewhere where it would stay safe. Anyway, we desperately need to stop. We're 3 hours in and like we have Final Fantasy in 40 minutes. And speaking of all this cooking, I need to do that. So
Yeah, me too.
bye
I'm
everybody.
going to
Send your
bed.
questions in. Just kidding, you won't. But send them to dialogchoicespodcast@gmail.com. No one has asked a question for like 2 or 3 months.
Yes.
And to answer your questions, no, we will not be forming a union on this podcast.
No one has any. No questions. We're not actually. You know what? We're not
questions.
taking questions at this time. Reverse psychology. Bleh. And the PO box is closed. It was never real to begin with. Bleh.
That's okay.
It's all a ruse. Oh yeah, and if you're listening, Andrew got your letter, whoever that was. I didn't open it. I just saw that it was
TC
addressed.
Green.
It was addressed to Andrew, so I just put it in another envelope and sent it to Andrew. And then he
TC
opened
Green.
that to get another envelope inside the envelope that had the original.
I was confused. Yeah, I was like, "Oh, Keith sent me a letter from his PO box," and I opened it. and I was like, "There's another letter, but not from Keith." Okay. So yeah, I did get that. Thank you.
Thanks for watching, like always, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.